Good evening. The time is now 6:36, and I am calling the City of Cibolo Council Budget Planning Workshop to order. The first thing is roll call and excused absences. Both Summer and Ms. Cunningham, Katie and Summer sent me a text message that they are on their way but are in traffic. So do I have a motion to excuse their late, do we need a motion to excuse tardy?
Motion to excuse Mr. Roberts.
Second. He's an absence.
Okay. We
Second.
also have an excuse for Mr. Roberts. Okay.
I good. That's really loud.
And the next, and all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, I'm trying to figure out how to turn it down.
Maybe it's just because somebody's in here.
Valerie, how do you get to the? Okay, all right. Now, we will go on to 3A, discussion on the strategic partnership grant funding. Yes.
Mayor, before Chief Troncoso and others begin, I'm going to hold off until after Brian talks about strategic partnership grants.
You know what? Because we're missing the two and they're not here yet, would you all mind if we move this to after the other two make it in? Okay, then in that case, we will be moving to 3B, which is discussion direction on the budget planning for FY27.
Thank you, Mayor, and we have one more council member coming in, so we're one closer. And actually, what we would prefer is that the council allow Chief Troncoso and Chief Andres to give their presentation on department overtime, and then we would have the main presentation last, if you're okay with that.
If that's okay, yeah, everybody okay with that? All right, that sounds like a plan.
So what you're about to hear from both chiefs is each one of them giving you a presentation about overtime, which we want you just to have a better understanding of what are the drivers behind the overtime in each of the departments. And you'll find a similarity is the lean staffing that we have, but also just key takeaways. And so if you can think on those key takeaways before we move to the main budget presentation, you'll find that we're proposing a base budget that's based on your no new revenue tax rate. And we're showing you that if council wants to move to a voter approval tax rate, that's the 3.5% increase allowed by state law for you to approve as a body, what you get by going up to the VATR. And you'll find that there's additional firefighters, 2, 1 additional patrol officer, 1 critical IT support staff that would be designated to support the police and fire departments, and then 1 position to support the senior program / the rental of the community center. And those positions are supported by the VATR. So with that, I'm going to let Chief Troncoso come up here and talk about overtime in the fire department. There you are.
He's going up there or no?
They will do that and just turn it over there.
All righty. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Appreciate you giving me the time to speak with you this evening. As Mr. Reed mentioned, got it?
Thank you, magic person who put that on.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I appreciate you giving me the time to speak to you about our overtime and staffing needs. As you, whoa. Okay. The key takeaways here, the department actively managing overtimes throughout the staffing policies, fiscal oversight, strategic planning, while continuing to pursue long-term staffing solutions that will reduce overtime costs to maintain high level of service and expected by the community. Hiring 2 firefighters immediately will equalize the staffing across all shifts. As of right now, we do have 1 station that has 12 and the other 2 only have 11. The leadership team will continue to pursue the SAFER grant for funding to address the department's staffing needs to ensure adequate personnel to support the current and future demands. As we see here in these buckets, here's the drivers breaking down in percentage. And you see on I guess my left-hand side, your right-hand side is the breakdown on the drivers of the overtime. Overtime, categories. Basically, it's a more breakdown of what just previously on the previous slide there. Overtime compensated at one time, the employee's regular rate. Overtime straight, it's a regular rate. Step up is an individual, they get an extra $2 more when they step up that meet the qualifications if somebody is gone. Holidays worked, obviously if you additional compensation on that. And of course our special events, our Cibolo Fest, Holiday Parade, and other events throughout the city. Overtime driving factors, professional development, Cibolo Fest, Holiday Parade, Junior Police Academy, and with us being so lean, every time somebody takes vacation, goes on a vacation, calls in sick, workers' comp, it drives us to bring in that overtime. Inclement weather is another driving factor, along with the late calls or actually early calls as well. As you can see, we have the minimum staffing. 3 personnel at each station is our minimum staffing. We do have 1 battalion chief at each station. That's not part of the actual individuals that are at each station. So the minimum per shift, we need 10 people on duty each time, 3 at each station. Routine budget monitoring. Overtime expenditures are regularly reviewed by our command staff along with the finance department. Budget reviews help monitor, spending trends, identify cost drivers, and fiscal accountability. Okay, sorry. Leadership oversight. Overtime utilization is reoccurring discussion with our battalion chiefs in a chiefs and battalion chiefs meeting. Staff needs to overtime trends to evaluate, identify opportunities to improve efficiency. This is one thing that we've added. It was a directive that when people before with this directive was implemented, there was, somebody would take off on vacation and then pick up an overtime shift that inflated their overtime rate. So we basically, if they took off 24 hours of vacation and they picked up a overtime shift, it shifted if they got their 24 hours back, and we paid them for that, so it minimized the overtime. So that this was one thing that we added to help minimize our overtime, and it has helped out. Current staffing levels, like I mentioned before, 1 shift currently has 12 personnel and 1 battalion chief, and the other 2 shifts have 11 and 1 battalion chief. Like I mentioned before, 9 personnel to maintain operational readiness. Operational readiness is, main goal is to have 12, and that will help us meet NFPA 1750, also known as 1710. That's also follows best practices. Long-term department pursuing for staffing. Obviously, if we cannot, as we proceed, we will apply for the SAFER grant. We did apply this last go-round for 12 positions, and I'll discuss that further in the presentation as well. Here's our current staffing levels. As you see it, on A shift, there's 11. With one battalion chief, it's 12. Ideally is what we want across, what we need is on B shift, 12, 1, which would be 13. Sorry. Operating all 4 stations at minimum staffing, we could bring on 2 individuals if we did not get the SAFER grant, but we would be at minimum. But of course, the flexibility, it's operationally, in my opinion, it's not a best practice, because any movement, what we do for vacation, somebody calling in sick, or professional development, it's going to drive overtime. But we can, if we hire 2 more people, and fire station does come open, we can operate, but I wouldn't recommend opening it up at minimum. That's basically what we did for fire station number 3 as well. This is the minimum staffing to open up, like I just mentioned. It'd be 12, 3 at each with all 4 stations. Hiring 2 additional firefighters will allow 4 fire stations to operate with 3-person engine companies to maintain staffing levels. However, the staffing model provides little flexibility to cover training, injuries, and vacancies, resulting in increased overtime and reduced operational readiness. Like I mentioned, we did apply for the SAFER grant. That was submitted in June. The applications are under review. That started July 17th. All funds would need to be allocated by the end of September 30th. You got to remember, we're not just the only department in the U.S. that's applying for this. There's a whole bunch of departments that are applying for it. One thing to make sure to, just to notify if we are awarded the SAFER grant. SAFER grant does not cover uniforms, personal protective equipment, fringe benefits, COLA increases, and professional development. And that's the breakdown on the contributions from year 1, 2, and 3. And then year 4, the city is responsible for 100% of the salaries. Like I mentioned, the key takeaways. One thing I do want to recommend is that in the main presentation, there will be a recommendation of 2 firefighters. And along with that, an extra IT person dedicated to the police and fire to help assist us with the IT services. Any questions or comments?
Does anybody have any questions or comments? Nope. I have a couple of questions. We've applied for the SAFER grant. How many times did you say? 7 times? 5 in-house and 3 outside?
We've used a consultant 3 times, and the other times where we did it in-house.
Okay. And so the other grant, if you roll back to that slide where you had the funding for FEMA, the next one. No, other way.
Which way?
Wait, keep going. Right there.
Right there.
Okay. So what you're saying to us right now is that there is a FEMA contribution to the salary and salary base and the total for these 12 or 11 and 11 firefighters that we have on shift right now. Is that what you're saying? That
No. So this is the contributions that if we are awarded the SAFER grant, this is the FEMA will cover 75% of their salaries.
so if we
This is
receive
new employees.
If we receive the SAFER grant, then we would be responsible.
For the city contribution, 244, 174.25%.
25%.
Yep.
Okay, so instead of the 976, 698, we would pay, I don't, under,
The 244, right on where it says.
244, and then at the third year, we would get the 630, okay.
Correct.
And then, so that would give us a break to bring on the new firefighters for the, because we're going to basically have to hire 10.
Actually, the grant application was for 12 firefighters.
Okay, so that would cover it, and
That
then
would- that would
at the
cover
end of
every-
that 3 years, we would then transition into paying,
Year 4
Yes,
would be
100%.
100% the city would have to cover.
okay. And this is with the projection of Fire Station 4, this 976,
Yes.
698, okay. All right, I just want to make sure that this, this is a huge expense. If we don't get the SAFER grant, this is what we're looking at the end of fiscal year 2028. Is that correct? We'll have the fire station open by 2028
Yeah, late May, around
of 2028.
mid-year,
Okay.
yes.
So we're a few minutes in the big scheme of things away
Correct.
from that. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that as we look at this budget and what we're looking at, that this is in the future, very near.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Yes.
So I know we've applied for the SAFER grant, and you said we haven't received it as of yet. What is the reason why it hasn't? Is it just because there are so many people trying to get it?
Yes. Yeah.
So it has nothing to do with our zoning that you talked about one time in the police academy that I heard you say? And, like if we're in 1, 2, whatever that thing. So, I mean, do you have any inkling if we're going to be able to receive the SAFER grant this year? Or do we really kind of need to look at these larger numbers?
Well, we should be looking at the larger numbers because it's not a guarantee. There's so many fire departments within the U.S. that are playing for the same pot of money. And then, of course, through the grant application, it's all point-based. And of course, they look at, the need. And then, of course, they also look at, okay, at year 5, because the information that we have to provide, is the city still going to be able to maintain these 12 employees, keep to maintain them. So there's a big formula behind it that goes along with it as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have a question, Chief. If the request is to add additional firefighters, the request is also to maintain the same amount of overtime that you're currently receiving. Typically, if you are staffing more, wouldn't the overtime decrease?
Yes and no, because it depending on, workers' comp and all the other stuff, vacations. As more staff we get, and we do have a young staff that people will take vacation. So I'm not going to say that the overtime is going to be eliminated, but it will be a reduction in some overtime.
Mrs. Sanchez-Stevens, could I add to what the chief just said? It's simply hard to predict what in the coming 12 months, the fiscal year, what will drive the overtime. So this year, we could not have predicted the amount of inclement weather. And that has been a big driver of overtime costs. And as the chief said, people taking time off, training, workers' compensation. So what we like to say is that getting us up to full staffing at each fire station will help the chief better manage the things that do drive overtime. So I don't want council to think that this will, by adding 2 firefighters in FY27, all of a sudden our overtime will dive.
Yeah.
But it helps him manage that overtime. And as he said in his presentation, both chiefs, along with Brian, Anna, and I, meet quarterly to go over the past quarter and what happened with their overtime. And so we are very diligent about that. And on a day-to-day basis, his battalion chiefs and he, just like Chief Andres does with his lieutenants, they're looking weekly or paycheck period-wise, what's driving that overtime. We're being very diligent in keeping overtime to a minimum.
So those 2 firefighters would be brought in at the beginning of the fiscal year, or the positions would open at the fiscal year?
That is the proposal when we get to the main presentation. 2 firefighters starting at the October 1.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. Any further questions? All right.
It is? Which one you want? I'm a little sleepy from that.
And as Chief Andres begins, there's an error in Chief Troncoso's PowerPoint. None of that is confidential. He just overlooked the footer that said confidential attorney-client privilege. It is not confidential.
Okay, good evening, Mayor and council members. For the record, Chief Cedric Andrews. And tonight, I will be providing a presentation to talk a little bit about our overtime structure in the police department. So as we jump into here, the presentation, one of the things we'll talk about is our overtime budget, where we're budgeted for this year, like $322,000. We'll talk about patrol budget. We'll go into a little bit of that, which, as Mr. Reed said, is extremely unpredictable when it comes to late calls and a growing community where we have had an increase in accidents. And we'll show you a chart of some calls for service and how we are calculating those on a daily basis, hourly basis. And then we'll talk about recommended overtime budget that we are looking at for the police department. So, overtime in the police department, basically, it's not discretionary, right? It's structurally built into how we operate a 24/7 police model. Our overtime bucket is typically driven mostly by mandatory, predictable overtime, as you'll see on the screen. Requirements such as holiday pay is in that overtime, vacation coverage, and our 12-hour shift staffing model is in that coverage. Each of these guarantee overtime in any pay cycle. So under our mandatory overtime, look, we have 14 holidays, right, that are offered to our employees to ensure that they have that. And that overtime comes at a straight overtime rate for all sworn personnel. Just the holiday bucket alone is about $82,888 in FY26, which forms a major portion of our baseline overtime bucket. As you look at Cibolo Fest, a wonderful festival for our citizens and visitors that come to our community, the cost for security, as well as overtime and covering that, is approximately $10,000 for police coverage. As you look at the annual holiday parade, the cost of covering that over the last few years have been approximately $12,000 in police staffing and overtime coverage. So as you talk about some of the mandatory components of it, vacation time, as we're aware, all of our employees get vacation time, right? They're accrued each payroll cycle. And because of that, sergeants and officers' overtime that comes out of that, especially as a minimum staffing model. I want to be clear, police department operates on a very minimum staffing model. And to maintain that, when any sergeant takes vacation or an officer takes vacation, it encumbers overtime, especially for our sergeants. We only have one sergeant on a shift. We have no other relief sergeant there, and that sergeant, if he's out, we have to cover it with a sergeant or someone if we have what we call an OIC, an officer in charge that's been trained to cover that shift. So in FY26 alone, just sergeant vacation time was approximately 640 hours of overtime, which came at a cost of about $46,752. So this structural cost, as you look at this, it's not optional, right? It's not a choice for us. We have to fill these vacancies. The main thing for us as a police department, we operate under a 12-hour schedule to maintain continuous coverage and staffing. Each officer, as well as sergeants, accrue overtime. Officers occur about 84 hours of overtime in an 80-hour period. With a lean staffing model, we cannot flex them off, and you'll see why while we're busy. But there are times when we can, and we do, but we've been averaging about 3 officers and a sergeant. As we get fully staffed, we'll continue to try to do that. But I'll tell you, it's based on calls for service. It's based on the demand of the day. So with that 84-hour schedule, it results in 4 hours of overtime for a sergeant. It results in 7.5 hours of overtime because they have to do roll call coverage, and they typically are staying late to make sure that everything gets turned in. Some of that, as you look at our overtime for each pay cycle that's accrued, it's built into the schedule, right? So without eliminating anything in FY26, some of our structural accrued overtime for sergeants was about 56,000. That's them taking off. That's the overtime that they have occurred as a result of that 7.5 hours, and the officers earning 4 hours of overtime came at a cost of about 85,000. So these are all true costs. These do not cover, this overtime is not related to late calls, weather-related events, or any major type of incident. That's just the minimum staffing model for coverage. So as you look here, the one thing that I am very pleased and proud about with the police department, we have 4 vacancies. A year ago, we had as many as 13 vacancies. We have been working overtime, and not that staff, but when I say overtime, excuse the pun intended, but it's to get staffing. So we're down to 4 vacancies. As I've said to the council, we will hold these 2 vacancies in the SRO program, but we fully intend to fill the other vacancies. So moving into some of our operational drivers for police overtime. Overtime, so our overtime structure requirements, again, as we talked about, is a lean staffing model. But the police department we actively manage our overtime budget. Our overtime costs are, as we talk about, that are predictable. A late call, if we get a call late, those things are happening. They happen daily, right? That's not something that's unpredictable in a growing city. Emergency events are going to happen in any city of our size. Mandatory training, our T-code training, because we're on a lean staffing model, our overtime for training any officer, they get their overtime, get their training on overtime. And staffing gaps that must be filled to maintain minimum staffing model. The department operates with a minimum staffing model that we talked about, and under that model, we have it, like I said, 1 supervisor, and all of this covers a 12-hour shift. What we can't predict is patrol can't leave any active scene, right? Because of a shift ends. We are stuck with that person if an emergency call comes out. Calls such as disturbances, crashes, and the violence and domestic violence incidents, all are drivers of overtime. On any call that you get, it's about 30 minutes to about an hour and 20 minutes to handle, right? And that's going to depend on the call. If it's a disturbance and we get there and they're not there, and we've driven across town with traffic, especially getting off at 7 o'clock in the morning, it's probably 30 minutes of overtime. But imagine if you're on a domestic call and you're working through a disturbance, it's probably going to take you an hour or more to get through. In progress calls, some of our high-risk calls that we continue to see, especially towards the end of the shift, when day shift, it's like violent disturbances, those major crashes, whether they are critical calls, these all require an officer to stay late. And as I said, there are unplanned overtime spikes that occur at the end of a shift. As Mr. Reed talked about, over this last year, we have experienced, as the council is aware, protests, weather-related events, large community gatherings, spontaneous incidents that may cause staffing to have to be on overtime or to require staffing to come back because we need all hands on deck. We're a small department. We get a protest, it's all hands on deck for us. If we get ice on the highway on I-10, it's all hands on deck. We cannot cover those things with just 3 officers and a sergeant. So things like training that I talked about earlier, firearms training, TCO mandated training, defensive tactics. Again, I just want to reiterate, those are all overtime drivers, no different than vacation and sick. We have to cover that full 12-hour shift if someone calls in. And then lastly, what I'll say is, as you talk about our overtime, one of the biggest things that we continue to see with those things in our overtime bucket is holiday and shift gap. So I want council to be clear. Everything in that overtime bucket is not late calls, right? There's other things that's in there that are drivers in there. When you actually look at our overtime with late calls, we manage about $30,000 a year. I will tell you that's outstanding if you look at other departments our size. So Here's the biggest driver. So as the council's aware, we have a crime analyst, and over time, we have continued to start to look at our calls. This is no different than fire. Here's your peak volume. These are running totals, right? As you look at a day of the week, the hours of the day, these are running totals till the end of the year. What I would call council's attention to is just look at Tuesday, 1,500 hours, all the way to about 1,900 hours. These are the volumes of calls that our officers are responding to. And it's even worse, right? Some of these are when school is happening. We can imagine what's occurring in the city of Cibolo during that time. We got a tremendous amount of calls on the road, right? School could be getting out and we're responding to disturbances. And these things are happening up until 7 o'clock when that officer gets off. So when we say they're accruing overtime, they are. With 3 officers, as you can imagine, they're all out working up until the end of the shift. I'll talk about some things we've put in place to try to limit that. But other things like major accidents that we see that occur on I-10, you guys get emails from me all the time, our officers are running to those. And we're not even talking about, animal services, who also gets calls sometimes towards the end of their shift. So talking about proactive management. So the police department, when we say we actively manage our overtime, Mr. Reed is right. We look at overtime weekly in the police department. The lieutenants come to command. They come with overtime that's occurred on their shift, and they're required to justify it and why the officer didn't get off or how could we get them off. So then when we speak about late calls and we put this up there, is because the things that we are accruing overtime are just things we can't control. One of the things that I'll tell you that we've looked at and we created on the shift was a pilot. We ran an officer where we now have an officer coming in at 6 a.m. or 6 p.m. just to keep an officer in between the shift. We can only afford 1 officer because we're averaging 3 to 4 officers on the shift. But that has helped some overtime, where the 7 p.m. or 7 a.m. officer getting off can go home because we actually have an active body working. So as we continue to staff, those are the type of strategic things we're looking to manage over time and fill those gaps. And then Tyler RMS, during reports in a call, has tremendously helped. I think it's some of our council members who have been around for a while know that a lot of our overtime drivers occurred at the end of shifts. We had to write reports because there was no way we could do reports in the car. That has tremendously reduced some of our report writing efficiencies, and we're looking at even other ways of being able to verbally call in reports. We're working very hard to limit overtime and increase our efficiency. As we talk about FY27, as council may be aware, the police department was requesting a sergeant and 4 officers. And why was I requesting that? A relief sergeant would allow us to have a sergeant to fill in when people are taking off so that I could move them around. Their schedule would be unpredictable, but it would allow us to prevent some overtime. Adding additional officers to patrol, I can tell you that will not reduce overtime. It'll reduce coverage because we don't have an officer in each one of our geographic districts. But again, a late call coming out, disturbances coming out, they are required to be worked. One of the things that we are doing now, so council is aware in our community, I have put in a plan that any priority 1 call, we will respond to at the end of a shift. But a priority 2 through 4, that means your life is not in jeopardy and you don't need assistance, we're going to hold those calls. So we don't expect to see a lot. We will monitor those. But if there's any call out there where there is a need for police, but if, there was a theft at HEB, that call can wait. We don't need to incur overtime. We will get an officer out there at the end of at the beginning of the shift to take care of that. So we're trying everything we can to look at how we manage that overtime model. So,
Chief,
yeah.
how do you manage that in your response rating?
I'm sorry?
How do you manage that, like separating the priority 1 call from so we'll get them out at the end of the shift, kind of like, how do you do that in your response rating? You know what I'm talking about?
So let me say this, and every police department in the country manages calls that way. Not one police officer every time a priority 4 call goes out sends an officer. We have to take a long look at a growing city to determine whether or not you stole a pack of bubble gum requires an officer to earn overtime. There is no way you can manage that. So how are you managing it? You're managing it by the need. If there is a public safety need, an accident, people are on the roadway, and they couldn't pull their vehicles to the side of the road, we need to be there. But if they happen to get in an accident or are able to pull in the HEB, I'm not sure that, and I'm pretty sure you all have been to other cities, if you're going to get an officer right away. Here, we're going to be to those scenes very soon, but at 7 p.m., if it comes out at that time, a sergeant can easily say, hey, I'm going to hold that call. As soon as a day shift officer gets in, how we would manage that, you're not going to roll call. You're going straight to that call.
And I understand that, but one of the metrics that we have as electeds, because we're not operations specialists in fire or police. That's not our specialty. But one of the metrics that I would look at as like what we're doing with the police department and the investment that we're making in the police department, and hopefully getting more police officers on task would be to bring down that response rate. So if I'm looking at your response rate improving over this time, what you're saying is you're going to be pulling out officers because the response rate in theory would have gone up instead of down, right? And so when I look at your response rate going down to 5.5, I'm saying, okay, just for transparency and for me to better understand, how do you get that response rate? I guess it's only on certain classifications of calls.
So a response rate is when an officer actually gets a call from dispatch and they head to the call. A call holding, which we currently have, right, with 3 officers, there are calls that are holding. Your hold times are different, right? So you could have, and we have priority 3 and 2 calls that may hold now for 45 minutes to an hour. We don't have enough officers to get to them. When we talk about a response, that means a response is a call that is dispatched, and how much time did it take that officer to get to the scene? So response rates and hold times for calls are different. We are holding those calls, just so council is aware, right now, right? They hold now. If you've written out with an officer, you'll see on their dashboard that we don't have the manning to hit every call. So these calls naturally hold, right? But at the end of the shift, what I have seen, we're sending officers to those calls, and we can do that, but your overtime will remain unpredictable, and it will continue to go up as we continue to put businesses and residents. When people call the police, we have to realize how we're managing that. So what I would say to our residents is, I don't believe you're losing a service on that, because my expectation is that you're not going to be waiting 3 or 4 hours on that. My expectation is, soon as that officer gets in, they will head to that call. But we're not managing that call, and I want to be clear, any different than any other major police department or any progressive police department in the country. That is how these calls are managed.
Right, and I appreciate that. But what I'm trying to say is, if we have a category of calls that are called hold calls, right? And we're tracking them over a period of time, say 4 years or 3 years or what have you, because let's face it, in 2 years, we're gonna have 12 firefighters. There's gonna be a big push towards firefighting. But the hold calls are expounding instead of going down, right?
Yes.
So we know the response time is, somebody's shooting at me, I think somebody's breaking in, my neighbor needs help. Like those are, I understand those are the ones that you're gonna dispatch and go to. But a whole call, I think we need to be able to also,
Yes.
as legislators and as budget approvers, we need to be able to take a look at that and see, are we decreasing, declining? Are we holding the same over this period of time, so that we can also prioritize? Because just because you don't need a cop right that second, the human being on the other end of the line, right? Like because we're not talking about anything but moms and dads and brothers and sisters, we need to be able to look at those hold times over a period of time, is all, because that's the metric we would use.
So Mayor, we look at that right now, Council. I'm looking at hold times constantly. Many of you that came and looked at our matrix at visit, we showed you what our hold times are, right? So here's the one that predicted for me would be looking at that. As I start to measure calls, right, and I start seeing calls that are accumulating, the first thing I have to come back to council and say is, hey, we are seeing calls that are holding. But not just at end of shift, you're seeing calls that are holding throughout the day. The only way to move that matrix is to staff the police department. So when I say strategically we need 8 officers, That gives you 6 officers in each beat and 2 rovers rolling the streets. With that staffing model, you can absolutely respond to call, reduce hold times, as well as drive down response times.
Right, and so that's just something that would be good for us to look at
Sure.
over, not every month, because, some months are gonna rock and some months are gonna roll. But if maybe once a quarter,
Yeah.
you could kind of report, hey, this quarter was really rough on the hold times, or
Yes.
we see a trend.
We absolutely can do that.
Thank
We
you.
could come in if you guys don't mind, and we could put on something and just give you some of our top calls for service, hold times, response times. But I don't want you to think that that is not being monitored. I've been monitoring that since I've been here. Yes, ma'am. But yeah, but I do think, and that's the only reason I mentioned that to you all, because I don't think there's huge gaps of hold times, and I don't think any of you have seen or maybe have responded back to me that people are waiting inordinate amount of time for calls. We're able to get to those, but I also want to be efficient, and I think that's what you guys want me to do with our overtime budget. We won't lose service. They may have to wait a little longer, but they won't lose service. Make sense? Okay. So as we talk about some of the overtime budget, again, we were budgeted at about 322,000. That was the police department's budget in FY26. Patrol alone spent 256,000. Was budgeted at 256,000 of the 322. Currently, right now, we're projected at the end of the fiscal year to be at about 345,000 in overtime. Now, again, we've had a very busy year with ICE and weather-related calls and protests. All of those things add up. And if those things don't happen next year, I don't think our overtime budget may go over. But each year, we're facing those things as we get busier. Again, and I think some of those are 12-hour shift models. I want to be clear, we're paying 4 hours of overtime every pay period, holiday pay, and all of those other mandates. We are recommending about a budget of approximately 390, but I'm working with Anna. We're going to try to get some of those down and hope that we don't have weather-related events. But obviously, there is no predictable outcome for where I can tell you our budget will be. So just moving through those things, the one thing that I would say, the last key takeaway would be this. I would encourage council. I know, look what our staffing requests are. I realize where we're at. As I would say to this council, I appreciate the city manager's office and the finance director recommending 1 officer. It doesn't always get you there, but 1 officer continues to add to our ability to provide service. So that proposal of 1 officer in FY27, obviously I know it's a proposal, but if we were able to do that, again, all of that helps. And lastly, I would just encourage us as we look at overtime and IT and other things, our IT services in the police department continues to increase, whether it's body-worn cameras to RMS systems. I know that there's a proposal to add an IT administrator for fire and FD. That really helps. Many times our report system will go down. It really would help us to have an IT person to be able to get to those things, because when they can't do a report, then sometimes that causes overtime. So a lot of those things in IT that are proposed in here, I certainly would hope council would consider those. It certainly helps us from an efficiency standpoint. Any questions from me on PD budget? Yep.
This is kind of a silly question, but why do you have more overtime for a holiday parade than you do for Cibolo Fest when Cibolo Fest is a longer track of time?
That's a great point. So here's the issue with the holiday parade that I've had. The holiday parade is a shorter period of time, but now with the downtown area, and we've been closing that over the last 2 years, putting a stage on the roadway. If we close that roadway down, you have to have a police officer. We also have a train coming through that city. When we closed that roadway the first time that I got out there, I had kids walking back and forward near that train track. That roadway was closed and cars were turning on there. There were no patrol officers. What ended up happening that year, I had to pull patrol officers from the road to go work traffic there. Calls were not getting answered. So that is a public safety need. If we're going to close that road down, we're going to have to provide adequate coverage. So the days extended longer, right, with the holiday parade. Yes, ma'am. Great question.
Mr. Who's next?
It's up to council, but I think since we're talking budget, we let Anna do budget and then Brian wraps up with the strategic partnership grants. But if you want to flip that, Mayor, you're welcome to do so. All righty.
Council, is everybody okay with pushing through the Ana Marana's budget presentation? And then we'll finish with the proposed, well, I think she's just going to go through like the NNR, the VATR, the budget, the suggested budget, all of that. Or would you rather do the proposed consensus strategic partnership grant distribution? I would say just do that at the end. Okay. Everybody okay with doing it at the end? Okay. Okay, let's go.
Thank you, Mayor. The presentation does start with a follow-up from the last budget planning workshop, which was on July 21st. Then we'll cover the tax rate discussion, present the debt service budget and the general fund updated budget, and then gather your feedback and direction. This next slide does show what we'll be asking council tonight, and I won't go through all the questions. You've seen the packet, so just keep them, in the front of your mind as we're going through the presentation. So feedback that we received from Budget Planning Workshop 2 was that council supported our one-time expenses with a modification to the 50,000 staffing and facility study. So it's a total of $658,400. Council discussed the utility rate increases of 7% increase to water, 11% wastewater, and 23% or $1.25 to the drainage rate. Council supported the drawdown of funds in the utility funds for one-time equipment and facility needs, as well as increased funding in the PFC for Community Center Phase 2, but requested staff to identify potential cost savings. Council also had follow-up questions regarding the cost of additional staffing requests and questions regarding the 5-year CIP. Some of these are answered in the presentation tonight and indicate the slide numbers that answer those questions or provide the additional information. The utility rate study will be sent by email, and the 5-year CIP will be on a future presentation. So the first one was
So the 5-year CIP isn't in this present tape?
no,
We're
it's
not going
not.
to talk about it tonight, but we're going to talk about it before we go to vote for the budget, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So delineating the cost increase related to health insurance to show that the increase that was proposed in the fiscal year 26 budget was about a 12% increase, and that's that second column, 12% or 11.9% increase from the fiscal year 25 budget. We do budget for 100% participation, and these numbers include medical, dental, vision, and life. In fiscal year 26, our rates came in higher, as you heard the presentation from the last meeting, and so the amount that was unbudgeted was an additional $10,000 per employee, or 17.3% increase. And then in the fiscal year 27 budget, we have budgeted an 11.6% increase per FTE annually.
Okay, so you're saying it was 17% increase?
The 17% increase was the increase that was unbudgeted, where our rates came in last year, or the current year, fiscal year 26.
Ms. Miranda, if I could, Mayor, I think you're saying, what is that 17% at the bottom of the chart? And that right there is the percent over the prior fiscal year. Is that correct, Anna?
It's not over the prior fiscal year, it's over the budgeted amount in FY26. We budgeted for an 11.9% increase. However, there was a 17.3% additional increase for a total of 28% to 30% increase.
So you're saying of the $2,064 or of the $2 million in FY26, we went over that $2 million budget is reflective of the $17 million? I mean, the 17%? or it's not in that amount?
The 2 million includes the 17%. So rather than 1.759, it would have been, had we had 100% participation,
Okay.
2,000,064.
I see the budget and then the addition. Okay.
And this year, we're budgeting 2.36 in all funds for health insurance, which is $11,460 per employee for medical, dental, vision, and life.
Is that just based on y'all's estimation of it increasing 5% or whatever?
12%,
Well, I mean,
11.6%.
but so HR has not actually gone and like looked at the rates.
We had a
You're just
presentation at the
guessing.
last workshop where the broker is estimating a 12% increase.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but they don't tell you until like October.
Yeah, that's why I was asking.
Yeah. Which is yucky.
The council did have a question at the last meeting about funding the Guadalupe County Children's Advocacy Center, GCCAC, using the child safety fee. It is an approved expenditure of the fund. It's an eligible expenditure of the fund. We do use child safety fee currently for the crossing guard program. It is required to be used for the crossing guard program if you have one. We use it for actually 50% for our crossing guard program. There are additional funds to support GCCAC for fiscal year 26, and it can be built into future payments for services rendered in the Cibolo Police Department budget. There are slides in your packet with additional information on the child safety fee fund, but we won't get into that tonight for sake of time.
Well, I'm going to want to come back to this slide before we go to the proposed consensus on the partnership grant distribution, and have Mr. Huggins maybe pull this slide back up, talk about what the GCCAC, why they had a professional services agreement with us in the past, even though it is a nonprofit, how it might be outside of that category for this particular type of service that they provide to the resident, and how we would support that. Thank you.
Council asked about the Chamber of Commerce membership levels at the last meeting, so we wanted to provide some more information on that. I'm not an expert on these membership levels, but the information is provided, and I believe there was a handout that was.
There was a handout, and it's included in the packet as well.
Are there any questions on?
Well, I'm sorry, I wasn't at the last budget meeting, I do apologize.
Okay.
But what is the difference? What do you get for $2,000 for the chamber going from presidential to CEO? I'm just wondering.
If you give us just a minute, we could pull up the handouts and show that to you.
Well, because that's not actually in our packet. Because I've gone through this entire packet 3 times looking for this. I had a lot of time on my hands.
There was a presentation done because this is coming out of the EDC, the CEDC budget. So the presentation packet wasn't really provided to us. It was like, there was a presentation done to the CEDC because it's coming out of their budget.
So you're asking us to look at something that we actually have nothing given to us, just depending on our EDC not providing information yet again. Okay, thank you.
That, I'm not sure what that was, but if you are interested in receiving that information, that's
Mayor and council, so I'm in agenda link, and what we posted was we posted the 2 presentations that the chiefs just gave, the presentation that Anna is in the middle of. We provided the chamber membership level, so that's the chamber, and the Tri-County Chamber membership levels. So that is posted on agenda link.
Because we're not asking to change anything on the Tri-County, which is perfectly fine, but you're asking us to increase the chamber, which I agree. I mean,
Right.
entity, and I'm not necessarily opposed to it. I just want to know what the difference with the $82,000.
And so if you give me a minute, we can share that on the screen because there's a matrix that says, here's what you get.
Yeah,
So you're good, you're good.
It is.
Council, while Wayne's looking for that, I'll just share my experience with the Shirt Cibolo Chamber. They actually augment the city staff. We find that the chamber augments the city staff's economic development department. Maggie and her team do a great job of setting up ribbon cuttings and openings. That is work that the city staff would have to do should the chamber not be available. We also reach out to Maggie consistently for research about businesses that inquire for retention or expansion and what history she has with those businesses. We find the service extremely valuable. You're getting a great value at $52.50. We don't see the $78.75 as something that's burdensome for our budget.
I think what she's saying is like the presentation that was provided to the CEDC, because it is coming out of their budget, maybe we should go ahead and ask Maggie to bring her presentation back for council so that she could do that in terms of like answering those questions. Because it's not even, it's part of the EDC budget, but that's why they,
I understand that, but this kind of also goes back to the fact that there's information being left out to council by our city staff that would be helpful. Just, I mean, because we're going to get asked questions. Why did we allow an increase of $2,000 for something? And we need to be able to explain this.
Yeah.
That's the only reason I'm asking the question, so we know what we're talking about.
right, but that information is available through the CEDC's video. Like if you were, you could watch the presentation that both Tri-County and Maggie did. But if you want that to come back, I think she'd be happy to give that information.
Mayor and
I'd be happy
council,
to call her.
I mean, we could.
Valerie Chapman is printing this handout, so we can hand it to you rather than just on a screen.
Okay.
We did provide information on the non-compliant wash pit that is at Public Works, and the need to make improvements on that to be compliant with TCEQ. So these are the pictures of that facility, and pictures of what is currently at the City of Seguin's Public Works facility, which would be similar to what we're proposing. There is information on why it's required in the next two slides. And then the estimated cost, and then they are working to reduce that cost.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have questions on these slides, or did you want to take time to look at the membership, the chamber membership levels?
Are you guys ready to keep moving, or do you have any questions?
This is something that's very important because we are fine waiting to happen right now. So I don't have any questions. I just need a comment that this needs to be fixed, and it needs to be fixed quickly.
I will say, Ms. Roberts, that like part of it is you get a free team at either the bowl or the golf event. If you guys do the bowling event that's coming up, the minimum to join that is $600 a team. So that's a huge chunk of it right there already that you're not going to.
No, I think she's talking about the bay. She's moved on. She's talking about the bay.
Well, SAFE agrees that it's a very important need that needs to be addressed. Are there any questions for Mr. Alhofa? Move on, okay. If there are any questions at the end, of course, we'll cover all the questions you have.
We do have.
For the, oh, maybe you'll address it. I'll wait till the end.
The council also requested a list of the equipment, the public works equipment that would be needed to proceed with in-house improvements to our roads, and also a list of other equipment that's in our 5-year CIP schedule. And so that list is provided here, and a description of some of these road equipment, a steel wheel roller with pictures and a motor grader. I think that's the coolest stuff ever. And a bucket truck. And if you'd like to pause and go over any of these, we can take the time to do that, but for the sake of time, I was just
Does
gonna
anybody have any questions
make sure
about
you knew
those?
it's in the packet.
No? Okay.
Okay, we also provided a cost estimate of the new positions that were requested or are needed at the department level. Total FTEs in the general fund requested is 22 at a cost of almost 2.6 million. That does include salaries and benefits, but does not include one-time costs for PPE or vehicles, and does not include recurring costs for training, uniforms, and supplies. The other funds also requested some FTEs. The utility billing, we included one in the budget and are working to include the other. Drainage, council wanted to move forward with an additional crew for that $1.25 in the drainage fee, and in the EDC, a marketing and administrative assistant was also included in the budget. And again, these dollar amounts do not reflect costs for training, PPE, or other equipment or uniforms.
Can I ask you a question? Why do you have, I guess it's kind of misleading to put the EDC marketing administrative assistant in the council's budget when it's really coming out of the CEDC budget, right?
I'm sorry, I don't know what you mean, put it in the council's budget. It is funded by the EDC, the corporation, the quarter-cent sales tax, separate from the general fund.
But it's showing up with other new full-time positions that y'all are asking or that are looking to be employed. So you're showing it, the 547 includes that $87,000 that would be from the EDC.
From the EDC fund.
Right.
It
Yes.
shows it on the left side. the
Well,
department.
I know, but still that doesn't explain why it's included.
It's confusing totals. It's so to you, because the way that you have the accounting, it makes sense, okay? But from my perspective, this is muddy water, right? And it's just because you see it as like one box, but to me, it's a separate box. And so the CEDC marketing and administrative assistant is going to be paid from our general fund?
No.
Okay. So then it would be paid out of the CEDC budget, which is a separate budget we approve separately.
Right, that's right.
So
And so everything on this slide, the general fund slide, is general fund, and everything on the second slide is other funds, not general.
Okay, that's making, so see, I know, other funds. Okay, back up to the first one, the positions requested on the first ones? Okay, and so none of these are being brought on board?
None of these are being brought on board within the NNR rate. So the budget we've been discussing has been
Is the NNR
at the
rate?
NNR rate.
Okay.
And we added this slide because last year during the budget process.
No, I'm tracking
Okay.
better.
Thank
I
you.
apologize, like Katie said, it said general fund and then, yeah, so we're tracking a lot of information, so
It is a
thank
lot
you
of
for bearing
information.
with us. So these are the positions requested out of the general fund, the new FTEs, okay. The next slide is the requested FTEs out of other funds, so the utility billing is paid out of the utility fund. But that's a position that's going to be actually moved from our general fund to the utility billing fund. Is that correct?
No, I think I created a little bit of confusion at the last meeting with that. We added a position in the utility fund 2 years ago, maybe 1 year, 2 years. And we've swapped it out for this meter technician and want to move that accounting specialist into the general fund so that that person can work on more than just utility-related accounting.
Oh, good night, nurse. Okay, so
Was that the position that we added to the 2024 bond election with the utility position? Is that what you're saying you're swapping? Okay. I just want to clarify that. We're good.
So this is not a net neutral. This meter technician is not a net neutral position.
It would be a net neutral position. By moving the accounting specialist that currently is funded from the utility fund into the general fund and replacing it with a meter tech. In the utility fund, it's net neutral. In the general fund, it's not. It's an increase in the general fund, offset by other decreases.
Okay, so you moved a person from one fund to another.
Yes.
So even though it looks like it's a new FTE, it's an old FTE just with a fresh face.
Yes. That
Okay.
would make sense.
And then the GIS technician for utility asset management is not being added at the NNR.
We are working to add it. So in the next 2 weeks before you get a proposed budget, we're looking for ways to fund
At the NNR.
that position
No,
in the
no,
utility
ma'am.
fund.
This is in other funds. The GIS technician, which was requested by Public Works so that we can better track and update our data around our utilities and other assets, will be in the utility fund because the position will do water, wastewater, and drainage GIS work.
So they are a new FTE that's going to be added at the NNR rate.
No, ma'am. The general fund is the tax rate. This would be in your utility fund.
Okay,
And I'm sorry,
tracking. I'm
Mayor
gonna
and
keep up.
council, for the confusion.
No, I gotcha. I'm tracking.
Okay.
It does not impact.
From the
the
utility
general
budget.
fund.
Okay,
Utility
I
budget.
gotcha.
And it has the capacity to support that position. The utility fund does.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for walking me through that. I appreciate it. Okay. And the EDC person is going to be paid for out of the CEDC fund?
That's right.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep.
Thank you.
So the tax rate calculation, I was able to provide some information when the council packet went out on assessed values. We received those on Friday. We did receive the truth in taxation forms midday on Monday, and so some of the information has been updated on these slides, and you'll see that in red font. So the certified net taxable value decreased 4.5% from the prior year, and it's 2.4% less than the range provided by the appraisal district for preliminary tax estimates in April. And as you are aware, there is an inverse relationship that exists between property values and the tax rate. So as values decline, generally to make up that revenue, you will see an increase in the tax rate. So that is what our TNT showed. This slide presents a 10-year history of our net taxable values, and you can see that the last 2 years have been a small decline. And this slide shows you in which areas that we had declines. Overall, we have seen steady increase over the last 6 years. Building from commercial 7% to 11%. We started at 7% in 2020, or not started, but in 2020 we were at 7% commercial values. In 2026 we're at 10.8%. Industrial values were 2.1%. In 2020 we're now at 6.2%. So this is reducing the burden on our residential taxpayers, going from 88% of our tax base to now 77 or 78% of our tax base. New property in the city totaled $59.7 million, and that adds approximately $329,000 of new tax revenue to the tax rolls. The overall change in assessed value was an overall reduction of $167.6 million, or the 4.5% mentioned earlier. Residential properties decreased by 2.6%, multifamily by 8.3%, commercial properties by 9.6%, and the biggest decrease was in industrial properties, which was a 21.3% decrease. So the result of this is that the no new revenue tax rate, which would produce the same amount of taxes if applied to the same properties in both years, increased from our current rate. So our no new revenue tax rate is 53.53 cents. And the voter approval tax rate, which authorizes or allows a 3.5% increase on your M&O, is 55.15 cents. For reference, 1 cent on the tax rate is $320,000.
What is the current one?
52.26 cents. So the 53.53 cents is an increase of 1.27 cents over the current tax rate, and the 55.15 rate is an increase of 2.89 cents on our tax rate. The tax rate impact on the average homestead value is shown on this slide. At the no new revenue tax rate of 53.53 cents, the average homestead would pay $1,835 annually, compared to last year $1,763, so an increase of $72 from the prior year, and that is because the average homestead value increased slightly by 1.5%. The difference between the NNR and the VAR is $55.55 annually to a taxpayer at the average home value. As you know, the tax rate is made up of two components: the M&O, which is maintenance and operation, and INS, which is for debt service. INS stands for interest and sinking, and it's used to pay the principal and interest on tax-supported capital projects. That is calculated at 0.1845. Our M&O rate will be decided by City Council. So property tax revenue at the no new revenue rate is shown on this slide. The net taxable value after freeze values and values under protest is incorporated is $3.2 billion. The NNR rate creates an M&O rate of 35.08 cents. That is our general fund. It is the largest source of revenue in our general fund, and the estimated levy would be almost 12.6 million. We would be budgeting 12.4 million, which is 98.6% collection rate. So we don't budget for the full levy because we don't collect the full levy every year. So that is what we've been working with when we are talking about our budget. In our budget planning workshops, that 12.4 million revenue is what's been incorporated into the base budget. On the INS side, the debt service fund, the 18.45 cents generates approximately 6.5 million at the 98.6% collection rate to service our debt. Now, the difference at the voter approval tax rate takes the M&O rate to 3670 rather than 3508 and generates $535,000 of additional revenue, property tax revenue. And that's shown in the second column, the third column, the number at the bottom. It only slightly impacts the debt service rate, reducing it by 20,000 because of the freeze levy, the way the freeze levy is allocated. The debt service fund, this shows all of the upcoming 2027 principal and interest payments on all of our outstanding debt. The total is 8.3 million. From that 8.3 million, some of that is self-supporting debt, or we have outside contributions from the YMCA that help pay this debt. So 6.6 million in property tax revenue supports that. Then we have the YMCA contribution, interest and miscellaneous revenues, and then transfers from other funds, which include the street maintenance sales tax and a portion from the EDC also funds some of the debt. For fiscal year 27, which I didn't change the year up there, it is a reduction of 450,000 is what we'd be budgeting. We would be budgeting for a use of fund balance to keep our tax rate stable at 18.45 cents. That will bring our fund balance to almost 1.1 million, which is about 12.5% of 12.5% fund balance. We do not have a 25% threshold in this fund. We're not required to maintain that. Anywhere from 10 to 15% is considered healthy. As far as a general fund update, we did include the additional revenue of $535,000 if council were to adopt the voter approval tax rate rather than the no new revenue tax rate. We also removed the $50,000 from the services line item for the study that we will delay for an additional year, which brings our projected ending fund balance to 5.4 million, which is 25.4% balance. And that is still assuming the no new revenue rate. This slide is a reminder of those one-time costs of the $658,400 that are covered in the budget proposed at the NNR rate. You've seen this slide before as well, talking about the essential increases in the general fund, and these are the tax rate options that council would be considering during this budget process. So you have the no new revenue rate of 53.53 cents and the voter approval tax rate of 55.15 cents, generating an additional 535,000. Now that 535,000, because we are very close to the 25% maximum or minimum reserve threshold, setting aside 25% of the 535 additional revenue leaves us with 400,000 that could be available for recurring costs. You've seen this slide before, but this is just a reminder of what that means to the average homestead value. The difference from NNR going to the VATR is $55.55 a year. This slide has the most red on it. It's a brand new slide. And these are some thoughts, some recommendations from the city manager for positions that could be funded at the voter approval tax rate. They would not be all funded for a full year. We would propose funding 2 firefighters for the full year, 1 patrol officer, mid-year, a public safety IT administrator, mid-year, and the senior program special event administrator is proposed to be funded in January. That would be at a cost of $370,000, which still leaves some room for other expenses to support the new positions, like computer equipment, training, uniforms, and things like that.
The red line that says the recommended level of funding for recurring salaries and benefits allows for $30,000 in other expenses to support the new position. So then in 2028, it would be $30,000 less on this line item for these folks? Is that what you're saying?
No, it would be a full year of salary, so instead of 370, it'd be 497.
Okay, that's how.
Plus, there would still be cost for recurring training, recurring uniform expense. There would not be cost for like the full set of bunker gear that has to be purchased in year one. The weapon and the safety equipment that needs to be funded for a police officer in year one.
Have any of these positions been looked at a no new rate? Would any of them be available to be added at a no new rate versus the voter approved rate?
Mrs. Roberts, the answer is we have cut over 100 line items in the budget to get our base budget to be balanced with our no new revenue tax rate in the general fund. As you all know, we already operate with lean staffing. What we had to cut were things that support the staff, but we have decided to get by with less. So that includes our training levels. Rather than going up in our training levels, we have cut them back to our current levels. We have cut other supplies and equipment that aren't critical to completing our jobs. Again, things that staff needs, but things that with Anna working with the department heads, we've identified, can we get by another year without these items?
I understand that, but what I'm asking is, like, if we were to stay at a no new tax rate, would we be able to add on the 2 additional firefighters and another patrol officer?
No.
So we're not even looking at that from other than at a voter approved tax rate. Okay, thank you.
So in this slide here, we had total recurring expenses of $25.2 million covered by recurring revenues at the NNR of $25.2 million. So our revenues cover our expenses the way they are now. Adding any more expense requires us to add revenue to be able to match that. So we don't want to pull any salaries from fund balance. Fund balance should only be used for one-time costs.
Right, and so the NNR does not include new positions or a COLA.
No.
Why are our people not important enough to give them a cost of living raise? But yet we're going to have all these executives in this room making over $150,000. But yet you've got your public works streets guys or whatever making $30,000, and you're not going to look at how to give them a cost of living rate. I think that's the wrong direction to.
I do want to say that I don't think that anybody is. I think our minimum salary is probably at least 25% higher than that.
I can tell you what a salary of a drainage worker makes, and it's not over $40,000.
Mrs. Roberts and Council, Anna and I are continuing to look at ways to provide a COLA and to present that to Council for all funds, not just the general fund.
And we have about 10 days to do that.
Yes.
So my concern about these positions, I think we do need more positions. I'm not arguing that at all. My concern is making decisions in one budget year that ties the hands of next year's group making decisions on the budget. So if we're funding these salaries and we're saying we can afford this if we do this, and this. If we fund 2 of these positions mid-year, if we fund this, or, 2 of these positions, the patrol officer and the public safety IT, we can afford it if we fund it mid-year. We can afford the senior program special event administrator if we fund it in January. That full salary is still gonna be required in FY '27. And so we have 120,000 extra that we would have to find in FY '28. If we already don't have it now, I'm concerned that we're tying our hands for next year. And that's why I sent that email about those position, the promotions that you had sent, where I was asking where that money came from. And your response was that it came from vacancies. Just because it fit in the current year budget doesn't mean that those vacancies and the funding that was available when those promotions were made is going to be available in FY '27. So those promotions, while totally justified, great employees, we do want to keep employees, it's tied our hands for the FY '27 budget and moving forward, because those are recurring costs. It's not a one-time cost that's made. Yes, it fit into that budget, but now it's an ongoing cost that we're going to have to find money for, or we're going to say, we don't have enough money in salaries, you got to cut one of them, because we don't have money to do that. I don't think any of us wants to cut positions at all. I think we need more positions, but that was my concern with those. And then also with this, if we fund these positions mid-year, we might be able to squeak out some money and get this $370,000. But next year, we have to find that 370 plus 120 plus the other positions that are going to be needed, because as Kara has said multiple times, that fire station is going to open. We're going to need more public safety officers, not just firemen, but we have police that we wanted to station down there. Chief Andres has been talking about needing more officers for years. So we have two kinds of things that we have to put in the budget. We have one-time expenses, which is equipment, blah, blah, blah. That's a one-time expense. Then we have recurring expenses like salaries. And I want to be very careful about tying our future hands, because these are ongoing expenses. If we know this is going to go up, that concerns me. I do think we need all these positions. I do like the idea of spreading them out so that we can have a little more room in our budget. And with reality, some of these you're not going to be able to post immediately. You're going to have to write the job description, do class and comp, all of that fun stuff, and then post it, interview. So you're going to take a few months for that. I just want to be careful that we understand next year we're going to have to find that money.
I want to break it down like this. In this last year, how many new property tax we got was $329,352. So basically, the city of Cibolo's no new revenue rate keeps your taxes basically the same, because basically the tax rate's going to go up, but because the valuation of your house allegedly went down, you're going to be, what I think Anna said, $72.20 more, because there's some increase to the valuation. But the no new revenue rate would keep us flat, plus the 329,352, which does some expansion for things like the 17% over the insurance
increase.
Other issues that have come up within the city. So if we know that 329,352 came from how many permits, then we can estimate approximately will the number of permits that are going to be issued in 2026, because they have to be issued in the C of O's, right, be closed in 2027 for the 2028 budget that would cover those in the year that we would have to have them coming up. So it is kind of difficult, because I wish we can go through this budget online. You can go through the city's budget online.
Yeah.
You can go through each individual fund. You can go through all of it. And some of it is ridiculous. And safes, Mr. Al Hadid's car wash thing, like the 820 bajillion dollars to wash a vehicle is ridiculous to normal people. Like, we can't even conceptualize, like, what are you talking about, building a car wash for a million freaking bajillion dollars? It's just ridiculous. But these are the things that the city has to do, or allegedly. We could be lawbreakers. I'm kidding. That we would do. And so I think managing that, the CIP is where I'm concerned. Like, I want my firefighters, I want my patrol officers, and I want my senior program person. Okay? We need them. We all, probably, the public safety IT administrator also. I mean, as they grow, if their computers don't work, they can't process the calls, they can't, whatever it is that they do with the little things that clicky people, you know what I'm talking about? Radios and all the things that are their technological world that we live in now. We have to have that, but what I'm worried about is how are we going to hire 12 firefighters in the next, we have to.
But that, it would be phased in. How are we going to hire 12 firefighters without the SAFER grant starting in FY '28? It would be phased in.
That's right.
It will put us at minimum staffing at all of the fire departments and
Right.
potentially increase overtime, but at 3 firefighters a year,
And does
we would
this
phase
leave,
it in until
does
we're
this,
at full
does this
staffing.
all, okay, so we know you're gonna phase it in, so then, okay, let's look at this is VATR, or no firefighters, no policemen, no positions for the
Right.
senior center. But what happens to the CIP? We have all these CIP funding. Is that included, is the CIP budgeted materials included in the budget in the NNR? So say, okay, we have the NNR, it's still gonna meet the CIP in the 5-year CIP dollar amounts. And then, okay, if you do get the firefighter and the patrol officer and everything, I need to have assurance that that NNR rate is going to get our CIP where we need it.
So the CIP is funded by the debt rate, the INS rate of 18.45 cents. Can we fund the 5-year CIP with that stable debt rate going into the future? Mr. Quiroga will bring us an updated CIP model to let us know what his thoughts are, but we can fund the $4.5 million for FY '26 within the 18.45 cents. It does not affect your NNR rate. The INS rate is not impacted whether you go to NNR or VATR. The INS rate will stay the same.
And if I can add, so when the truth in taxation worksheet is calculated, it's for the MNO. So cities manage their INS tax rate based upon the need or the desire to have bond-funded or certificates of obligation, debt-funded projects. So I hope we've answered your question. INS rate is over here, and based upon the amount of money the city spends, that rate can either stay level, go down, or go up. And because we're a growing city, our philosophy has been to maintain that INS tax rate because you know the needs of our community.
Well, but we all, okay, so I get the INS and I get all of that, but some of that we did with savings or funding, like for the parks. And, help me out, people. You know, we had I just want to make sure that we're going to be able to fund and do everything that we need to do in the CIP and improve the roads, because we are going to do the road study coming up,
That's right.
That's part of the,
And Mayor and Council, we held off on the issuance of the certificates of obligation at your request so that we had updated information from our financial advisor. And as Anna just told you, he has affirmed that our 18.45 cent INS tax rate will support the issuance of 4.5 million for this year, while maintaining the capacity in FY '27 to issue debt to cover our portion of FM 1103 Phase 2, and I believe there's one other small amount for parks that we are going to provide. So in your FY '27 budget, you're only really passing a budget for what's in FY '27 for the 5-year CIP. And so we're able to maintain that INS tax rate at 18.45, take care of the 4.5 issuance this year, and cover what we've identified for next year. Our 5-year plan shows at the top the capacity that we have each year with that level INS tax rate.
Do you have a CIP slide at all that I can take a look at it? Because I know it's, I get what we're doing, right, with the NNR and the VATR to fund these. Is everybody tracking that? Okay. So what I'm trying to track now is, okay, let's say we I want to see the impact all of this is going to have on our CIP, because how are we going to fix the roads?
Well, we do have a funded street maintenance program. I believe, was it 650 or 750,000 that the streets department usually uses, so that's not going to be an impact. However, the PCI is going to determine the new roads that we're going to use future debt capacity for. So we're not even going to look at that until 2029 when that debt capacity comes. So I think that's a little bit of a, I mean, it's good to forward look, but it's not going to be something that we're going to get to decide right now because that capacity won't be available. One thing I would like to mention, if you wouldn't mind, Mayor, because I didn't get a chance to talk, is that I feel like to Katie's point, we're in a bind. We're in a complete bind also because of the way I feel. This is my perspective and point of view, the way that things have been presented since the beginning. For instance, maybe it would have been a preference to completely fund the Wash Bay area, maybe through the COO, because that seems like a worthwhile investment over a 20-year, note, and to consume debt on that. So I just feel like there's additional things that have been added to the needs on equipment just as well that we should have probably considered in full circle, and that way council can, could have weighed in on that. But yet all of that, the 4.5 million CO was already allocated to multiple things. I almost feel like we probably need to reprioritize those things. For instance, the Wash Bay is a complete priority. We're looking at maybe redesigning it to make it smaller, and yet then the time consumption of washing these vehicles, everyone's going to have to fight for terms, right? That's what it seems like. So could we defer some other repairs that were listed on that CIP that haven't had service agreements just yet? So for instance, the HVAC for, not that I want the officers to sweat it out, but they have nice cars with, new cars with AC in there. But just saying, can we defer something like that out? Because I believe when we were looking at the HVAC, when we were looking at the roof repairs, that's about 700,000. But if I wouldn't mind, just things that we could probably look to reprioritize. Another thing is that, or draw down. Another thing that I wanted to mention is that there were promotions, although very well deserved, ahead of us even having the entire values. I noticed that, part of the positions for the general fund that are being requested are an accountant for 100,000 and a payroll specialist for people in performance for another 100,000. And I'm looking that when it comes to a senior program, special administrator, that we're coming down to just one patrol officer and 2 firefighters, but yet we have 200,000 that just materialized in the general fund because of.
No, those are not.
Did I misunderstand that?
That's what they want.
I know.
That's not what they got. They're not going to get that.
Unless we go
Those
to
are
the
unfunded.
voter-approved
No,
tax.
they won't
No.
get any of those.
The
only thing.
The only thing that we're proposing are the ones
Yeah.
on this slide.
If
From that list.
they did the NNR, they get nobody.
Right.
Nobody, no new FTE.
Right.
0 FTEs, right? In the general fund. Thank you for clarifying that. That was that other slide that tripped me up. And if they do the VATR then it would only fund 2 firefighters, 1 patrol officer, a public safety IT administrator, and a senior program special event administrator. So that's what you would get for FTEs at the VA. Okay. So not that other list was like what
And
they
I want to
wanted.
make sure
Okay.
that you're aware that the estimated cost includes salaries and benefits. So that's not a salary cost. That is including their health insurance, their payroll taxes, their retirement contribution that we make on their behalf. That 100,000 is all in, not the salary amount.
And then, and that's why it's like, yeah.
And Mayor and Council, I just want to comment, the water compliance wash bay that is being shown would not be put in to the same bucket of projects that are funded from your INS tax rate. So to be clear, your INS tax rate is a property tax rate, and it funds items that are appropriately located in the general fund. The water compliance wash bay would be funded, if you wanted to issue debt for that, out of the utility fund. Not based on a tax rate, but based upon the fees that people pay for utilities, because it's a compliance for the vehicles out of the utility fund. So we could issue debt for that wash bay rather than using funds on hand in the utility fund. So I just want to differentiate a utility fund improvement versus what's in the general fund, and an improvement that would be funded from a tax rate in the general fund or just the revenue in the general fund.
And just to recap, because it wasn't updated on this presentation, before it was at 25%, and it equated to about 205,000. So how much will come from each fund, and will the payout will be the 500,000 or the 800,000, whatever it is? What's the intention? How much total from each fund?
75% from the utility fund, water, wastewater, and 25% from the drainage fund.
So it will be covered from
Yes.
those two funds? Okay,
And
thank
they're
you for that
suggesting to
clarification.
pay it in cash, so we're not issuing debt for it from the balance, the fund balance in those two funds. So again, that would not be a project you would fund with your INS tax rate. And I did send the PowerPoint from the last budget workshop to Tracy Beekman and Brian. Not that Brian can pull it up, but I'm hoping that Tracy will pull the PowerPoint up from the last workshop so you can see the 5-year CIP.
There are only a few slides left in the presentation, and this one is a reminder that the FY27 base budget does not include these items at the NNR rate.
Okay. Any further questions or discussions more? Any on that? No? Okay. Okay, hang on.
Maybe this comes up later on in presentations, but is there going to be anything for the cost of living? I know the base budget you're saying does not include cost of living, but are we going to have any presentations on what cost of living percentage amounts would be?
Yes, at the August 11th.
At the
August 11th council meeting.
11th? Okay, thank you.
We have one more workshop, August 11th.
August 11th is a normal council meeting, and we will provide the proposed city manager's budget at that time, and we'll have a presentation on that council agenda.
Can we
It
get
will
that
be a workshop.
information a little bit earlier than that too on the cost of living? I think it's really important when you have staff. I know we like to give promotions. I know we like to do celebrations and stuff and things like that. But when you're struggling and inflation's going up, everything else, I think it's really important that we not just talk about it, but we actually really mean it when we talk about our budget. Like, that needs to be a priority, in my opinion.
It is a
So-
priority. We equally value affording our employees a cost of living every year. And council every year, along with us, make important decisions that affect what we can do to invest in our employees. I'm extremely proud that over the last 6 budget cycles, through the good work of the executive team working with council, you've kept our employees at market competitive rates. And that was not what this city did when I joined in '21. I won't go down that road to explain how far behind we were, but you, the council, decide that that's important. In 4 different budget cycles, you've moved employees to market. And we've also been able to afford COLAs in our budgets. And that's why Anna and I are continuing to work on how to squeeze that into the budget.
Are we able to revisit the one-time costs? Because I did have a couple of questions as to, because some of these things were a little bit generalized. And I wanted to know as far as the technology replacements for $75,400. Also, about maybe we could defer the small equipment furniture replacement for $113,000. Maybe defer the compensation and classification study since we can't get to the facility and staffing analysis just as well for $40,000. Possibly also understand what are the capital costs for $70,000.
I've had Brian go get Tracy so that Tracy can speak very specifically about the capital replacements for IT.
I think he's doing it right now.
Are we ready to move to the the proposed consensus-based strategic partnership grant distribution? Or is she going through more?
Mayor, I thought Ms. Sanchez Stevens wanted to talk about one-time
I did.
I am so sorry.
I was like, what just happened? I just, because at the same time, you know, these presentations have really outlined staff's priorities, so I feel like this is a great opportunity for council to also talk about and discuss what are our priorities. Does council have priorities? You know, because this is something we're talking about, maybe deferring things to the next year. This is the opportunity to have those discussions.
He just said he was going to go grab Tracy to answer them.
Well, the technology is one aspect of it, but we're talking about what are the capital costs for $70,000? You know, compensation classification study, can we go ahead and remove that since we already did a internal compensation study just a year ago? Small equipment furniture replacement, I don't know where this is going. Is that intended to go into the community center? Is that intended to go into this building, into the annex building? That's $113,000. These are just, you know, one-time costs. As I mentioned before, we could do an equipment budget because here we are financing a public works equipment for $70,000 on the COO, but yet we have all of a sudden within these presentations, after the COO presentation, these funds materialized. So I was just asking.
We typically don't put any capital costs in our CIP plan unless they exceed $100,000 for an item. And so like small equipment, furniture replacements, some examples of that are training room task chairs, light bars to outfit new trucks, drone and software for the drone, park benches, I don't know how this got louder, but park benches, barbecue pits, trash can replacements, canopies, tool storage sheds. That's some of the small equipment that was requested in that $113,000 that is in the budget. The capital item for $70,000 is actually capital of $25,000 for fencing and parking lot improvements, and $45,000 for animal control equipment or related to their vehicles. Park facility repairs and maintenance, again, there's picnic tables, there's some significant irrigation repairs at the YMCA, seal coating the parking lot at the sports complex, landscaping at all of our parks that hasn't been addressed. We do mow them, but some of the landscaping hasn't been addressed. So those are some of the improvements or increases in cost that were requested in this year's budget, and we can fund them as one-time costs, right? We don't expect to replace the same barbecue pits every year or picnic tables every year, but some of those improvements just haven't been made because there's never been money available in the budget, in the recurring budget. So putting them in as one-time costs this year. That's what those are, but those are not 20-year equipment that you want to put in a bond.
Right, but we still don't have the money in the budget to take care of some of the stuff. And we are getting ready to redo 2 of our parks. So you're putting in a capital, or in the,
It would not be the same parks, no ma'am.
I
It
understand
would be
that,
different,
but
yeah, the
the
different
other
parks.
parks that you're planning on putting it was what, Slaughter Park? Okay, there's already benches and covered areas, stuff like that. So you're asking us to spend money that we don't have first and foremost, that could go to other people and other expenses, but you want us to spend this money and agree to this money when it makes no sense.
So this money is one-time money. It's not recurring money.
I understand
So
that.
we can't put that towards people.
But you could you not put it towards one of these other expenses that you're asking us to provide? I mean, it just doesn't make sense that you're one-time cost and we're gonna get a barbecue pit. Woohoo! I mean,
And we can remove those one-time costs. That is council's prerogative.
Mayor and council, these one-time costs, particularly when it comes to park facilities, repairs and improvements, are coming from the staff in Public Works about parks. And if what you would want to do is have a detailed listing of each and every item that has come from the departments for these, we will provide that for the August 11th presentation so that you have that in advance and then you can have that full discussion. August 11th is merely the introduction of the city manager's proposed budget. On August 25th, we have, as we always do, the second meeting in August, we have an agenda item for your feedback and continued input on the budget. So you have the opportunity to remove these items in the budget before that meeting in September at which you're asked to adopt a budget and a tax rate.
I have a question. The 125 for the parks repairs, that's what you're talking about, right? Isn't that what you did the plan for? Wasn't that what the plan was for and what we had agreed through the study and everything to pay for?
No,
Mayor,
ma'am.
Mayor and Council, this is Margarita Hernandez with the Parks and Recreations Department. So the 125 does not incorporate anything that we're going to get out of the master plan. It does not. It just gets your parks to looking decent. So we have fire pits that have no concrete pad. When people go out there and barbecue, if they drop a spark out on the grass, it can catch on fire. Completely out of
I
code.
need to make sure. This 125, I remember that we had the parks
Yes,
master
ma'am.
plan come. We could do the.
We haven't done the master plan. Let me clarify that. For the parks, we did 2 master plans for Nimitz and
Right.
Veterans.
And
Okay.
and
And
that's what
those
she's
are
talking
2
about.
different projects.
For a total of how much money for the parks?
Total is like 1.7 million or so. I'm sorry. No,
700,000 for one park and,
685,000 for veterans and 1.3 for Nimitz.
okay. But, and we had how much? We had,
That's all we have.
okay,
For phase 1.
for
Yes.
phase
They're
one.
yes.
Okay. And so you're saying this 125 is going to go to the other parks?
Other parks to include some of those safety hazards like those barbecue pits that I just mentioned to you at Nimitz, because Nimitz does not have that incorporated into the $1.3 million.
And Mayor and Council, Ms. Hernandez, if you could, just the sports complex irrigation and just the cost of that, that's included in the 125.
Absolutely. Right now, the sports complex irrigation is not functional. Currently, I have 2 staff members that have to go out there with a water buffalo and hand water those fields to be semi-operational for the YMCA. We received a $44,000 cost estimate from an irrigator to get that system functional. Those are the type of costs I'm talking about. These parks have not had a significant maintenance done on them, so they are needed. These are not luxury things. This is like water fountains that right now do not function. Trails that the granite is no longer there, and grass and weeds are growing.
I think it would be very helpful to have details on that.
I certainly have
On
it,
any
yes.
of these things that are small equipment, furniture replacement, 113,000.
We
What
can do
furniture? Capital cost, 70,000. It's just so broad, it's hard for us to know.
We
I
will
don't
do
think
that.
we're not questioning if you're
If it's-
putting something crazy in there like Porsches for people. We just want to know what exactly technology replacement, that could be a wide range of things. It could be drones, it could be laptops, it could be screens up here, it could be lots of different things. So having that detail would be very helpful.
I'll give you that list, and also just to want to recap, that list partially came from our Parks Recreation Board. They go out there every quarter, they do assessment of the parks, and they bring me a list. And without any dollars to do maintenance, all I can tell them, I'm sorry. I will do the ones that I can, but the most of the time I don't have money to do those repairs.
And Mayor and Council, Tracy's here, and I'd like him just to speak generally about the 75,000 for technology replacement, and then we will do the same. We will provide you a detailed list.
Evening, Mayor and Council. So the technology, oh. The technology replacements is part of our 5-year plan to replace MDCs and police vehicles, fire trucks, the computers that folks use at their desks, iPads, things like that. We replace them on a 5-year basis. And it's just our replacement cycle that we use. So that's what those are.
Okay, so like you have a replacement 5-year plan? Or-
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So it wouldn't be difficult for you to provide the 5-year replacement plan to the council?
Not at all.
To whomever, like, yeah, okay.
Right, I do. I do have a big old spreadsheet.
Yeah, these totals were added up from a very large spreadsheet of requests that were entered by each department. And so I recapped it on this slide, but we can provide the detail. So the 75,000 is not just a lump sum that Tracy gave me. He actually went in and put, 13,000 for the police department admin and 12,000 to replace, utility billing or planning computers. And, it is by line item, by department. And I do want you to know that some of the items were reduced. So there are a lot more needs than 125,000 can cover in the parks. So when Margarita does bring you a list, it may be significantly bigger than 125,000. But no, that's just what we could manage in our one-time costs without going below the 25% fund balance.
Okay, so then before the August meeting, please send that on each of the requested items to council so that they have time to review that and pose their questions to you ahead of time so that we can be as judicious and as efficient as possible, because it will be a regular council meeting. And I want to make sure that your questions are answered, or that if you have suggestions, that they could flesh it out, right? So that when it's presented back to council, there's a more robust answer as to how they would take that suggestion to merit.
Now, when you see the proposed budget, it will be a line item budget. You will see each line item by each department. It's the book that you normally receive. And so we'll have the next 7 days or so to put that together for you. So we do need your direction on this slide, your feedback for all of these items. Does City Council support the funding of GCCAC through a service agreement with the Police Department for fiscal year 27 and incorporating that into the fiscal year 27 budget?
And Ms. Miranda, that would not come out of the general fund, that would come out of the Child Safety Fee Fund, for which there is a balance and recurring revenue.
It can, yes. It can, that is council's option.
Okay.
Hang on one second.
And you had mentioned, is it going to be at the next budget, or the next time that you will give us the proposed budget?
At August 11th council meeting.
Okay,
And
so
we'll
it's
try to
going to be
have that to
based
you
off
prior to
of the
that.
no new revenue rate or the voter
That-
approved tax rate? Which one are you going to base it off? What are we going to be looking at?
That's the decision that we'd like council to make tonight, is which one would you
That's
like
what I
us to
thought.
present?
Okay.
Well, we are sure that the NNR, what the NNR gets, it's
No new
no
positions.
COLA and no positions. So the no new revenue rate would not be, I mean, she could do it off the no new revenue rate.
Well, I mean, we don't know necessarily, well,
She could do it off the no new revenue rate and hold the slide out for the other budgeted components.
But you will be asked on that evening to set the maximum proposed tax rate. We do have to post public notice of what our proposed tax rate will be, and we cannot adopt a tax rate that is higher than the maximum proposed tax rate that you set on August 11th.
Can you repeat that, Summer? Listen to that did you get what she was saying? She's saying that we have to repeat, can you please repeat?
So on August 11th, council will be asked to decide on a maximum proposed tax rate. You will not be deciding or adopting the tax rate on August 11th, but we do have to publish notices in the newspaper on what our proposed tax rate will be. And so we call that the maximum proposed tax rate. You can always adopt a tax rate lower. You cannot adopt a tax rate higher than the rate that you propose on August 11th.
And Mayor and Council, the reason you do that is just to comply with state law. It says you have to advertise what that maximum tax rate would be. So in this year, the maximum tax rate that you could adopt without voter approval is the VATR. So on August 11th, we'll remind you of the NNR to the VATR. Someone makes a motion to say the maximum we will consider for the budget is this rate. You would have to set the maximum tax rate at the VATR if you wanted to go down the road of adding those 5 positions that we showed you tonight. You could do something less than the VATR, but we would pull back the new positions that we showed you. Now, for tonight, these are the questions that we need your direction on.
So I heard a positive response on funding GCCAC through either the child safety fee or our general fund budget. Is council leaning towards a child safety fee for that?
Hang on, we have a question?
So my question goes back to the fund balance, reducing the fund balance to 25.4. How much is it for every 0.1 reduction, or whatever amount you have off the top of your head, 1% reduction? So if we went down from 25.4 to 25 flat, how much extra would that?
25% is 5.3 million. So 5.3 million divided by 25.
You need a calculator?
The reason I ask is we have some one-time costs that are in the general fund right now that are not coming out of this reduction in the fund balance. And so my thought process is, I believe we voted to reduce that to what, 23?
About 212,000 for each
25?
percent.
So we can go down right now to 25%. And so if that 0.4 gives us a decent amount of money, then we could move some of those other one-time costs out of the general fund, free up a little bit more potentially. We also had stuff on the CIP that is budgeted for several years out, primarily equipment for public works. We need specific equipment in order to fast track, I can't think of a better word, fast track road repair, in-house road repair. And so if that 0.4 is
That
any.
0.4 is probably 80-ish thousand.
Oh, so it's not that much.
We
Okay.
need people.
Right.
Like, we need road patcher guys. We need like
Yes.
5 more road patcher guys.
For sure. But the fund balance is a one-time. It should be used for one-time costs. It should not be used for recurring costs because we can only reduce it one time and it frees up a certain amount of money one time. That though, if we moved one-time costs that we're paying out of the general fund, that would free up recurring amounts.
Well, and that's what I'm talking about because we have the equipment, we're consuming or getting this equipment, but really the priority at this point is like the folks, right?
Right.
Like the
And
actual boots on the ground.
I think I heard you say removing one-time costs would free up cost for recurring expenses.
Potentially. So let's say we have our reserve fund balance here, that we have one-time costs. We're proposing a reduction to 25.4. With that amount of money that we're reducing it, that we're freeing up from the reserve fund balance, we have one-time purchases.
Right.
Additionally, in our general fund, there are some things that are proposed that are one-time purchases. Let's do your $75,000 in technology. Was that out of the reduction or was that out of just regular general
That's
fund?
out of reduction.
Let's pretend it was out of the regular general fund. So let's say that there was $80,000 in expenses in the regular general fund. I'm sure there are some one-time expenses.
I combed the general fund for all one-time expenses.
Okay, so you already tried to pull it. Okay, because my thought was if we can move any additional one-time funds out of the general fund, then it does free up that recurring cost for us.
Or raising revenue, right? It doesn't have to be property tax revenue, but if we were to see, our next sales tax number comes in August, I don't know, 7th or something.
Yeah, that's just been
You know,
so.
if we add a little bit to sales tax, if we add a little bit to.
That's been so unpredictable though that I hate to bank everything on that. Like, oh, we're probably gonna increase. It's reasonable to assume that we're going to increase our sales tax revenue. But I don't wanna assume that. I always try to plan for worst case scenario. So if it doesn't increase, it stays the same or it decreases, how do we still maintain these ongoing costs and add more money or free up money for additional positions that are needed?
Well, and the one-time drawdown are you drawing that $30,000 of additional costs out of the one-time or out of the general on the city manager's recommended VATR positions?
It depends on what it is. So if it is bunker gear, we're drawing it out of one time and it can be out of this 0.4%. If it's recurring costs, training, uniforms, that will be out of the recurring cost.
Well, I don't know, like you just have that 30,000 there and you don't have it what?
Right, that 30,000 is recurring revenue. It's available for recurring expenses. So we could I could put back some of the money I already stole away from everybody's line items. But we can use the 0.4% for some one-time costs like bunker gear, PPE for the patrol officer.
Okay. It's not enough to solve the problem.
Typically, I mean, I would like to say that typically our end of year projection is very conservative, and sometimes we do have one-time money left at the end of the year that we didn't project. And we will let council know if that occurs, this year when the year closes.
Okay. So, I'm sorry, Ms. Sanchez-Stevens, I don't want to skip you again.
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now, is it appropriate for me to move us on? Oh, Summer, you have a question? Oh, please move us on. Okay. All right, then.
I do feel like not all these questions have been answered.
Okay,
Correct.
let's go ahead and focus. So, I'm sorry,
So yes to GCCAC from child safety fees. Is that a consensus? I see heads nodding.
Let's go ahead and have Mr. Huggins explain what the GCCAC is, because I want to make sure that folks looking at our budget are clear that this, even though this is a nonprofit and services that would be provided, it frees up our police officers, all the things.
Right, so if you go back a decade ago, the Cibolo Police Department had a professional services agreement with GCCAC to provide $5,000 a year from 2015 to 2017 in funding, because they do provide a service for forensic interviews for victims of child abuse, neglect, so on and so forth. They provide a service for our police officers that is very specialized. If we were to have to send officers to get the training to do the forensic interviews that these folks do, it would be a significant amount of money and a significant amount of time. They provide this service to all the law enforcement agencies in Guadalupe County. That professional services agreement we had with them expired in 2017, and they did not ask us to renew it. I talked to Ms. Williams at GCCAC last week. She said, Chief, I don't remember why we didn't renew it back in 2017. They were building their new facility. She said, I was probably preoccupied. Long story short, I asked, can we do another one? She says, I don't have one with Schertz or Seguin, but I'd be more than happy to do one with y'all. So I asked our city attorney's office to take the old professional services agreement we had from back in 2017, renew it, prepare it for us so that we can go into a new professional service agreement with Guadalupe County Children's Advocacy Center.
Yes, and also the services that they provided have been growing so much so on this side of the county that they are actually going to be making a
satellite
facility.
office. Yes, ma'am. They're going to be doing a satellite office in the Schertz area. And like anything else, right, as your population grows, your crime grows. Unfortunately, crimes against children grow along with the regular crimes. So we're not going to be shy away from services that they're going to provide for our officers. So
That's right.
that will be continuing to grow.
Benefits our police officers, and it benefits some very vulnerable folks in a difficult situation.
So we have provided funding to GCCAC the last couple of years through the Strategic Partnership Grant Program. But I concur, I think it's probably a good idea if we do this through a professional service agreement and provide them annual funding, either through the Child Safety Fund or through the general fund, and supplant that money from the Child Safety Fund into the general fund.
Okay, thank you.
I would also like to add, I was able to tour the facility about a year ago or so, and I would just like to add the support, as you mentioned. There's certain training that they have that our officers would probably need to be equipped for, but the thing is that they have child specialists, and they have a facility and a room where the children feel safe, and they ask, and they give them this safe environment. They have different toys, things like that. They know how to engage with the children to help them with all that has happened, and that's something that our officers are not equipped with. So honestly, the service that they provide is 10,000 times more than we can ever give to that organization. It takes a special group of people to do that. The fact that there's an increase of unfortunately, of child abuse even in our area. I'm thankful that they're considering putting another facility here closer to us. Right. And so I feel that it's more than reasonable to help support this organization that helps our communities, because if y'all haven't toured the facility and also gotten to meet the staff and the things that they have to, the challenges that they have to, it's a very emotional thing. One thing I enjoyed seeing also was their healing garden, and the children are always welcome to come back to the facility and to talk and go to the garden, and it's just very well done. If y'all haven't had an opportunity, we definitely contact Ken Keel and he can organize a tour.
They're fantastic at what they do. They do it all day, every day. And I mean, not that our officers couldn't do that if they were required to, but if we have this service available to us to use, it just makes sense to use that service.
May I ask a question? So with this new agreement that we would have, would it be for just the $5,000, or is there an ability for us to increase it a little bit more to help support the great cause? I hate to say it's a great cause, but all the services that they do support for our kids, because I've actually met some of the kids that they've helped. And
it is a great cause, because these kids would not have that service if these people weren't even doing it, right? So the amount of funding is totally up to City Council. It would be a recurring cost every year, so we really need to evaluate how much we could say definitively that we could contribute each year out of that child safety fund? Because the child safety fund does fluctuate. It comes from, fines that people pay when they get citations and so on and so forth.
As long as somehow it's brought back every year, maybe the grant strategic partnership distribution time is a good time for us to have evaluated the amount that we have in the child safety fund that's available for the GCCA. And so we would pull the GCCA out of the $12,000. Is that the intent of how we're going to do that?
Moving forward, no, the intent was to utilize the child safety fund, and that way it'll,
Yeah,
with
so
the
it would be
strategic.
pulled out.
Yes.
Yeah, away
correct.
from
It'll
that
be
list.
Right, they would
out
not submit
with
an
that.
application for the strategic partnership grant program moving forward if we did a professional service agreement
Correct.
with them.
Right.
And if y'all decided that as council to say we want to give them, 5,000 this year, maybe we consider 7,500 next year or something, we could bring that professional service agreement
So-
back every year during the budget process and let y'all determine how much you want to put in that next year's
So I'm
budget.
talking about today. Do we take it out of
That-
this?
That's totally up to you. We
I
can do
would.
that. We can
I
take the
would,
funding for them
yes.
out of this
I mean,
this
like
year.
OFF, it's off of this list and you're going to
Absolutely.
provide it through the professional services agreement.
Yes, ma'am. If you instruct us to provide $5,000 a year this year to GCCA.
Do we need to make a
through-
motion or do we just make a direct?
How much is available in that fund that's not already earmarked?
That's what he was saying, he doesn't know yet.
Got that?
I
Oh, he
think
has
Ms.
it?
Miranda can answer that question.
Projected to have close to 70,000 at the end of fiscal year '26.
And is that, any of that already earmarked for other projects? I know they do child passenger safety and they do some other stuff with that funding. That child passenger safety is not that expensive. It would not be
Part of
70.
that funds the crossing
It
guards.
pays for crossing
We
guard salaries.
fund crossing guards. In the past, we have funded other items. This is the revenue, and we're receiving between, about 45,000 a year on average for the last 4 years. We use 25 to 30,000 for crossing guards. So there's a little wiggle room in there. We could fund more crossing guards with it, a larger portion of the crossing guards with it.
And
We
you
have
can do
used
safe
one-time money.
routes to schools with it. You can improve crosswalks
We did,
and
that's what that
lights.
$110,000 a year was for the flashers.
Right.
The
So
Schools owned flashers last year.
we had 127,000 in fund balance in FY '24, and you see that drawn down in FY
That's the
'25 where we
flashing,
funded that.
that's the flashing one.
Okay.
So that's why you need to bring it back. So we're gonna take it off of the discussion tonight. You're going to bring, yes, we want it to be,
Funded in the child safety fee.
The reason I
Potentially,
asked
can we
about
give
the
them
amount that
the-
was available, ooh, that got loud, really loud.
right?
Yeah.
Was they've requested $12,000
That's
every year
what I
that
was
they've
gonna
applied
say.
for the nonprofit strategic partnership grant. They've requested 12,000, and so I wanted to see if there was availability for that full 12,000 out of this fund.
This year, for sure, we could do it out of this year, and we can look at what the revenues are for next year. When we bring this back,
And if he brings it back every year.
then y'all can look at that at that point, to make the
Okay.
decision on how much you want to do every year.
Yeah, how
What
much
we-
could fit?
What I would recommend is we not put an amount,
Right. I get that
specific
because
amount in the public
there's gonna be
professional service
maintenance on
agreement.
those crosswalks, there's gonna be maintenance on those turning lanes, there's gonna be maintenance on those flasher thingies, so, and safe routes to schools.
And I don't
So-
think that would be a problem with GCCAC because they don't have a professional service agreement with Schertz or Seguin.
So what I
So-
would like you to do is kind of like propose a budget and say, okay, over the next like 5 years, it looks like we're gonna have to maintain these crosswalks. Like, cause you have to paint them, right? You have to paint them? It's on
Yes,
us
we
to
do have
paint them?
Maintain them, yes.
So all of that maintenance, if you can get that kind of worked out, then we can give GCCA, say, okay, these years we can give you a little bit more of the banana, and then this year it's like, a slice. And that way they can budget also, and we're still taking our responsibility with that funding very seriously.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Good
I
deal.
think that is fantastic. And so if I'm going to go down here through a roll call, I'm going to ask everybody to say yes for Mr. Huggins to bring back an amount for the GCCA. Jeff, are you?
Yes.
Okay, does that make you happy? Is that clear? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Does the city council support funding the Clean Water Compliance Bay 75% from the Water Wastewater Fund and 25% from the Drainage Utility District?
Yes.
Marissa? For the, for yeah, the TC. It's mandatory, and this is the way you're funding it because you feel this is the most appropriate way for us to not go in debt. Okay, yes? Okay.
How much are we funding it for? The 500,000 or the 800,000?
At this one, the 500,000, that's the cost estimate we're looking at.
Is it because you don't have the full 800,000 between both utility funds, or do you have it?
It's not about what we have. When we started the project, we had that first design, and the cost estimate was 800,000. Then we started to look into ways to reduce the cost, so we reached to a 500,000 option.
Were you finding ways to reduce the cost because you didn't have it in both utility funds?
Because it would be expensive, we anticipated that it's going to be expensive, and we didn't want to go to that full option. The first option was providing room for 2 vehicles to be washed at the same time. Now we're reducing the cost to be 1 vehicle at a time.
No,
one
And
truck.
Mr. Al-Haddad, you also changed the materials. The original design, I believe, was masonry. Now you're looking at metal.
We are looking at that one, that option too.
But you're only gonna have one car wash for $500,000?
And you can have 2 for
Remember,
800,000?
this is a water compliance car bay that has a lot of equipment that's inside what would be a shed next to it. If it was just a car wash with a drain, it would not be $500,000.
It seems like 2 is better than 1 in this particular case. Do you have the room?
Especially if
We
you're
do.
using both of your brush trucks and your streets equipment and everything. I mean, so you're gonna make your guys stand in line to wash their trucks.
Yes,
So they
that,
can use it the next day. When yeah, they're gonna have less production because it's less work that they're gonna be able to be out there on the streets doing, when you could have 2 at $800,000.
So we have the funding in both funds to do the $800,000 project. We have the funding there to do the $800,000 project to get both bays.
Uh-huh.
We had a little feedback at the last meeting about that's really expensive. Is there any way we can cut some of the costs? So that's one of the reasons Mr. Al-Haddad started looking at, is there a way to do a lower cost project, which is the $500,000 project, but that reduces it to 1 bay.
Can you explain, for the sake of the public? And so the EPA is like, we're not above the law, like every other entity that's going with asphalt or concrete or whatever, fly ash or whatever you've got going on for pouring concrete and all of that. What are you doing in these bays?
the requirement right now is when a facility have vehicles and equipment that transports pesticides or concrete or chemicals, the vehicle and equipment must be washed properly, and all the material will be separated before the wastewater can be released into a creek, into a street, into an inlet, or into the wastewater system. So the requirement here is we cannot just release that into the system. The wash bay or the clean water facility is basically going to have that equipment, a great inlet, concrete base, containment of curb. So when we wash the equipment, all the water will be collected. Then all the sediments, all the debris, all the chemicals will be separated from the waste, will be stored aside, and then the clean water will be released into the creek or into the system. Then we go again, remove that sediments that we separated from the waste. We will take that to a landfill or to the proper place to dispose it.
So are you washing backhoes and and front end loaders and the asphalt trucks.
asphalt
You're not
equipment.
washing trucks.
No, it's not for trucks.
Okay.
It's not for the crew trucks. It's for the equipment.
So on an average day, Mr. Al-Khaidi, how many backhoes are you using, and front-end loaders and all that? Like, how many people are going to have to bring their equipment in on an average day to the wash bay?
I would say 10 and more than 10 trucks will be washed every day at the end of the day. When they come back from the field after they're done with the operation, they will clean the vehicles before they store them to be ready for the next day.
So 10 pieces of some type of equipment, mower, front-end loader, backhoe, hoe ram, whatever we got.
Correct.
Okay. And you have 10 pieces of equipment, and how long does it take on average to wash that piece of equipment? Let's say a backhoe.
A minimum 30 minutes.
How much?
A minimum of 30 minutes to clean it properly.
A minimum of 30 minutes. You have 10 pieces of equipment at 30 minutes a piece. That's 5 hours of washing. I don't think we did string engineering there, did we? We didn't do the little boots walking on the ground, the spaghetti time management majigger.
Well, it's sometimes when they go to the field to do, for instance, locate or to do vacuum, the vacuum truck will go there, not for the entire day, for the specific job. When they come back, they'll have to wash it and then park it. So our preference is to wash it that same day to remove the debris and all that sediment from the equipment itself.
So like you could do it like half in the morning and half in the evening.
You can do in the morning. You can sometimes go in the afternoon, and you see that they're done from a certain job, and then do
2.5
it.
hours a day. All 10 pieces couldn't go out then. So you'd have 2.5 hours in the evening and 2.5 hours in the morning. It's still very counterproductive. Oh, I don't know. All right, anybody have an opinion on this wash bay? Jeff?
If we have the money, do it, but if we're gonna give them direction to do it, then that needs to be the consistent direction.
I agree. Marissa?
They've already said yes.
Hold on a second. He said, if we're going to do it, if we have the money to do it, we should do it, but we should give him specific direction to do it.
With the way you do their schedule, do you foresee it being a backup if there's only going to be one?
Right now we operate with one space for equipment, so we wash one equipment at a time. Definitely that's time consuming. That would impact productivity, especially if we need to do 2 or 3 or 4 at the end of the day, which means staff have to come back earlier in order to line up for that cleanup. So if we have to, we'll definitely shorten the time of waiting or cleaning operation.
Okay, so it can cause them to have, essentially it will take them longer to do certain projects and then longer for their time because they're having to get back to that bay to wash it every day, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And you guys said you had the money for the $800,000 to do the 2 of them?
We do.
Okay. I would say if you have the money to do that, do it, especially if you plan on adding more people to your crew strategically. That's going to happen in the future. We already know that. So if you can plan for it now and pay it at this cost versus having to add one in the future and that cost to go up, it's probably better to do it now.
Agree, time is money, so I'd rather do it now.
The water fund has like $8.3 million. We can draw it down. I feel it only makes sense, and that's why I asked. Why are we going 500? Are we doing 800? Because, and Mr. Huggins, to your point, absolutely. I think the last presentation I went to go look back at it, it said 25%, and then it gave the figure of 205, and then when we heard the final amount, we're like, whoa, we were surprised. But again, it kind of goes back to the last time when we had asked, give us the figures, let us know so the shock factor kind of wears off, and then by the next meeting, then we can go ahead and make that decision. This presentation was a lot better, and it made a whole lot more sense. You provided pictures, you gave us the full, concept. It made sense. We had already looked at both funds. This was the first time it was actually portrayed as 75% from the water fund, 25% from the drainage. So and that's why I was asking, because I was really wanting to advocate to say, let's go for the 800,000 and maximize the use, limit the time that it takes, and get the guys out of there, get in and out. So yay for 800,000.
I'm all for the 800,000 as well. We have the funds. It's actually something we have funds for. So, yeah, and your guys need all the time that they can get to do their jobs. So $800,000 the way I go.
No need for a dissertation. Makes sense to me.
Okay.
Thank
Who
you.
wants to make do we need to make a motion on it, or is that?
No, you're giving the direction, and I appreciate how you go around the dais so that we have clear support for each
I just
item.
want you guys to know that it is insane, but I think because I know what a VAC system does, I'm glad you're cleaning it out in a safe environment. Because, ew. Okay. And does city council support funding the Tri-County Chamber and the Chamber at the membership levels as presented? I think there was some question as to the 750 for the Tri-County. Anybody? No, at the last meeting. You're good, you're good. We're going, yes. The CEO.
Was this out of the EDC fund last year?
No.
It's been out of the general fund in the past, correct? And now we're proposing putting it, okay, perfect.
I have a question. So we're paying for exactly what for the additional $2,625? Just greater visibility? Is that the request for the chamber? I saw that. I want to know why. Like, there's a $2,625 increase, and I just wanted to know if it's just for the greater visibility. What is the reason? What was the reason that they said that they wanted that? or they
Mrs.
recommended
Brown, I think Rick Vasquez can answer that best. I don't think it's so much the chamber's request as much as the EDC board's
it? No,
recommendation.
I said the EDC board. I said the EDC board.
Yep. I think Rick could answer why the EDC board felt the
Yeah, what was their
value
reason?
was there.
The chamber president attended the EDC board meeting and communicated the additional items that would be provided on the list.
Mm-hmm.
And under the CEO category, and the board agreed and made the recommendation in their budget to fund the elevated levy.
Okay, all right. That's just for the
The
chamber?
levels and the benefits, like, we can participate
In more?
all of those things and we don't pay for them. They're all included. Which, by the way, there is a chamber bowl. Has anybody responded to that?
Of course.
You have one? What day is it again? The 21st of August.
I'll go rah, 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 but I
I can do it, I'm just very bad at bowling, so I was waiting until there's like, we have one more spot to fill.
I would love for everybody to come. This is it's really off topic. But so we will get back to so the question that we had at the last was about whether or not we were going to approve the chamber and the Tri-County Chamber. So is everybody okay with approving the chamber at the CEO level per the request of, yes?
I would also like to just add, Mayor, that on the events, they're not just events, they're actually going towards, let's say, DECA, right? So that's what we're investing, so it's not that we're just going off to golf just for the sake of golfing or bowling. It really funds that, and that's what it's going towards. I wasn't sure about, would they utilize, or would anybody utilize 50% discount on leadership core tuition? I believe that's usually $800, so you would get a $400 discount. Is that what was of interest?
Oh, that's good training. But,
Okay.
okay, but let's keep it to
Okay.
the membership. Okay, so Jeff, are you okay with the CEO, the chamber membership level?
Yes, ma'am.
Marissa?
I'm good with it.
Katie?
Yes.
I have a roundhouse of yes. Does the city council support still funding the Tri-County Chamber? Mr. McLaughlin?
To the same rate, correct?
Um,
600.
Are you sure it's 650? Because I was at that presentation and I was pretty sure it was 750. It is 750. Hang on 1 second, we're gonna check. Yeah, I
So-
think
Here, I'm in Agenda Link, and
on
this
the,
is,
yeah, on the slide, we're gonna check the, yeah, but that's on the slide, we're gonna check, because I was pretty sure it was 7, but I could be wrong. Could happen.
in the packet, we included the Tri-County Chamber membership application and the business community. Is it business community? It says the
Somebody needs to
business
go.
community.
Yeah, if we're gonna pay for it, somebody needs to go.
The
We
business
can't-
community membership is $54.17 a month, and that equals the 650. Yes, it's 6.04, but
Sorry,
it's $650.04.
perfect, okay, Jeff,
Yep.
Marissa?
It's coming out of the EDC budget. They're the ones who voted for this. Like, I watched it. That's fine coming out. If it was coming out of our budget, like from us, I would say no, only because I have gone to it and I just was not made to feel welcome, or I don't feel that Cibolo as a city was recognized at the events that I went to.
I'm good with the 650. I agree with what Marissa said. Last year when we decreased it, we did talk about the reasons why we decreased it and said that we knew they were getting new leadership and that they had all these good plans for this year, and that we would discuss increasing it back up this year if we saw the changes that we were promised. And maybe they need one more year to prove that to us.
I'd also like to see if the EDC board would also attend them. I'll say yes, being that they voted for it, but I'd like to see that they see if this is going to be a worthy investment to continue moving forward.
I agree with Ms. Cunningham that they did promise us that they were going to be more visible to the city. And yeah, we know who they are in the city, but does anybody else in the city know who they are? Or do they help us provide anything of the stuff like the chamber actually does? So, I mean, EDC's paying for it, okay, but again, with what Ms. Cunningham said and Ms. Sanchez-Stevens said, EDC, I really feel needs to see if it's worthy.
Well, I think that Marissa, going to those events, we've seen what they will do and will not do for the city of Cibolo. But like you said, if EDC is going to go and attend, then go for it.
Okay, all right, you got that answer. And does the city council support the no new revenue tax rate or the voter approval tax rate for FY27? Do we have to tell you tonight? Can we keep you guessing? I
would
prefer a tax.
To not guess.
I would recommend, just based off of past years when we have discussed the budget, I recommend the higher one, which is the voter approval tax rate. The only reason I'm saying that is because we cannot go lower. So the next council meeting, when we vote on this, you have to vote for the highest the tax rate can go. If we go with a lower one right now, we'll be scrambling if we decide to go with the VATR. So I'm not saying yay more taxes. I don't think anyone up here is cheering for that. But if we don't look at the gap between there, then we're kind of stuck.
Mrs. Cunningham, if I could add to your comment, you're right. If you set the maximum tax rate at the VATR, the council's not locked in to approving the tax rate in September, and it affords you the greatest flexibility.
Right, it just gives us options.
That's right.
And we could do something between the no new revenue rate and the voter approval tax rate.
Yes,
There's nothing
ma'am.
that says it has to be one or the other. We can go lower than the no new revenue rate, but the boundary that we have is the highest of them. And so that would be my recommendation. I'll go with whatever council says, but my recommendation is to go with a higher rate so that we do have that flexibility in moving down, because we do not have any flexibility moving up.
It's about the people. We need the firefighters. Jeff?
VATR.
VATR.
I'll go with the proposal to be at the VATR, but I feel that there's room to probably be a little bit lower. I just want to say since 2023, when it was at 0.46, because we were over, here we are almost at 10 cents over. Just to take that into consideration, that doesn't mean that we've ever come short with revenues. We have made revenues ever since then. So it's just a little concerning that our revenues have increased, but then our expenses have outpaced our revenues somehow. I just want to bring that to light because there's something that's happening, and I don't know. I think we took on a very expensive tab when it came to getting back with the health benefits of what they actually came in at. So now that we have to pay that recurringly, so that's going to cut into it. So every new position that we add on, we're incurring those additional full benefits. So we really need to take a step back and look at what we're approving, and at the same time, when staff brings those things to us after the budget season, we can't come back with it being doubled, kind of like the community center. You know, it was a little over 200,000 initially. That was the expected, and came in double with that, with the health benefits. So that just restricts us from what we're capable of doing recurringly in the future.
I'm willing to go with the VATR now, but not be locked into it whenever we actually get to the final budget.
I agree, VATR.
Thank you. Does the city council support reducing the fund balance to 25.4% given a one-time cost?
Yes.
Yes, and potentially down to 25 if there's more one-time costs we can move from general fund.
I agree with that, as long as the 0.4 is spent on the residents.
I agree with Ms. Cunningham and Ms. Sanchez-Stevens.
Yep, me as well. I'd like to see it go down to 25.
Okay, I also want to circle back and say, remember you said you were going to send that breakdown to each of the council. Please don't forget, because otherwise they'll get cranky. Thank you.
It's already in our OneNote actions, so we will do it.
I just want to kind of go back because I know we just went over it. Is council in agreement for the compensation and classification study of $40,000 for the one-time costs? Or is that what we're doing tonight, is approving all of these one-time costs?
You're not, I'm sorry, Anna, you can answer.
I thought your request was to reconsider.
You're
That
not
might be-
approving this tonight. We're moving forward with this list. We're providing you a detailed list. When the city manager's proposed budget is introduced, we will be discussing these that evening. You can make changes. And again, on August 25th, you have another opportunity for more discussions. Before then, we present the final budget at the first meeting in September.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else before we move on to the consensus-based strategic partnership grant? Anything else? Okay. Mr. Huggins.
All right, thank you, Mayor. So the last time we actually discussed this at the council meeting, there was a discussion about how can we look at these requests and come up with some kind of tabulation of consensus on how we would distribute these funds. I want to thank Ms. Sanchez-Stevens. She sent this to me like a day or so after we had that last meeting and said, hey, if we really look at all of these requests and how council graded them, if we took the consensus of the majority of council supporting these entities and their requests, 7 entities graded 5 council members or more. And we have $12,000 to distribute. So the breakdown here that she provided was for these 7 entities. Now, tonight, we've talked about removing number 1, which is the Guadalupe County Children's Advocacy Center, and funding them from the Child Safety Fund. So that frees up that $3,900 on this list here, leaving 6 entities that are y'all, 5 or more have agreed to fund. If you took that $3,900 and divided it by 6, it's another $650 available to each of those 6, if y'all wanted to do it that way. Or if you wanted to divvy up that money another way than is what is shown on this list, that's totally up to y'all. But I thought this was a good starting point, and I wanted to thank Ms. Sanchez-Stevens for providing this.
Do y'all want to take a minute, or how do you want to do this?
I like this breakdown. My thought is take the 3,900 and split it across the 4 entities that have at least 4 council members supporting it, because that's at least half of the 8. If we want to do it differently, that's fine. I think that's just the easiest based on the sheet that we have.
Yep, I agree.
So I want to make an argument about some of the ones that did not get a lot of support. I looked at the number of people served with each of these organizations, or the number proposed in Cibolo, and our strategic plan in some of the areas where we've really struggled. Along with that, the Youth Council has talked a lot about things that are missing for youth and teens. And so 2 of the organizations on the back page, Pedal SATX and JSA Youth Association, only had 2 of us vote in favor of those or award those any money. Pedal SATX proposes to serve 150 youth in Cibolo, and JSA Youth Association proposes to serve 200. I am not saying that these other organizations are not fantastic organizations, but Resources for Women is planning to serve 20. Miss Cibolo, 27. CASA, 7. Big Brothers Big Sisters, 7. So if we're looking at bang for our buck and actually serving residents in Cibolo, there are some that didn't get very many points or very many votes that will be serving more of our community than some of the others. I love Resources for Women. I was one of their guinea pigs when I was pregnant with Mabel, when they needed ultrasound models to do ultrasounds on and practice with their equipment. I got tons of ultrasounds when I was pregnant with her. It was great. That was when they were over by OLPH. So they are a really great organization. I just struggle with awarding them almost $2,000 when we have other organizations, and they're proposing to serve 20 people in Cibolo versus other organizations like Warbler Woods, 500, Northeast Lakeview, 75, Hope Leadership, 25, Pedal SATX, 150, JSA Youth Association, 200. There's other organizations that would serve more people. It's not saying that they're not fantastic organizations. This is the hardest thing that we do, I think, the entire year. I just want to make sure that the limited amount of funds that we have impact the most amount of people. And so when I did my scoring, I looked at the number of people they would serve and then the cost per person based on what their request was. So Pedal SATX, I am going to reach out to them and see if they can come, even if we don't award them. They do bike maintenance and bike classes for kids, for youth. And so I think that that's something that our community needs, especially if we're going to get sidewalks along 1103 in the next 3 to 20 years, however long it will take.
Somewhere in between there, yeah.
They teach bike safety classes too, so I think that that would be a good partnership, just in general, regardless of if they get funding through this. But that was one that stood out, that one in the JSA, because they do serve youth, and that has been an area that we've talked about for the last 10 years since Cibolo Summer Nights came about, since the Youth Council came back, was putting stuff for youth back into the community.
I do have a question.
Okay.
We may have, I may have asked this, or someone may have asked this already, but why $12,000?
It was started at.
Can we budget for
Started
more?
at
I'm just
10,000
wondering.
and they raised it to 12,000 last year, just because of budgetary constraints.
Just-
I tried to get it up to 50 and then down to 25, and we got 12. We had some people who were not super thrilled with this idea of having the strategic partnership grants. It is something that we can relook at now that we're in budget season. I think that there's a lot of stuff when we get into the line item budgets, specifically the council line item budgets. We have a lot of money for swag and branded merch that I've tried to cut every single year. That if we cut that, we could add some of that money to this.
Yeah.
But it's been 12,000 because that's what it is. But FY27, we can increase that.
Okay.
Unless there is funding.
Can we find it?
I'm not a huge fan of the city funding private entities. I think I would rather see us go work for these organizations for fundraising or something like that. I mean, tax dollars we have employees that we need to provide services to. It's just not something I'm super comfortable with unless they're providing a service back like the Guadalupe County Children's Advocacy Center, or like the Master Gardeners that provide a service back to the community in training. I didn't know about SA Pedals providing bike safety. If they provide a service back, or they maintain like because we are part of our thing is tied to our historic roots and innovating for our future. So that's why, the quality of life issues are there. So, I mean, what was your suggestion, Jeff, that you give 3,900 to the top 4?
We can give it to the ones that 4, we can split it amongst the rest.
Jeff, I like your idea, but maybe we can consider this, because then it puts each of those receiving about $975, even though we all ranked them in the fourth ranking. So that means that those that were ranked in, let's say, 5 of 8, they are going to get less than the ones that were ranked lower. So what if we were able to bump up those last 2 to about 1,000 each, right? And then that's about 750 that we knock off the 3,900, and then that will leave us with 3,150 and divide that by 4, and that would give us about 712 for each of them.
Marissa?
So I was one of the people who did support Pedal SATX because they also do community bike rides, which I think as we're trying to get more people out and about, we did our fun run, family fun run in September. I think a community bike ride would be great. So I personally would like to see that they do get money from us because I can see that direct impact.
That's what Norma's saying,
But they
that
said the-
everybody would get it.
She said the first
And
4.
The bottom, which is,
There's people on the back.
yes, because they are released ranked. For instance, they were ranked
She did
only
not
2
include that.
council members.
Oh, I see.
So I would like to see them. I think we're going to see a bigger impact if they're included.
So, Marissa, to your point, there's something that Mr. Huggins actually suggested one time before. Let's say, for instance, they get the grant money this year. Maybe they need to wait maybe a year or 2. That way it gives other organizations an opportunity to come back and reapply. So, for instance, Angel Helpers has received it in the last 2 years.
Yeah, they have.
So if they get it this year again, then maybe they have a waiting period before they can come back. Ms. Cibolo Pageant has also received it. This will be the 3rd year in a row. But if we create a 1 or 2 year, a gap year, then it'll give opportunity for the others to try to come back and apply. So Hope Leadership Group was new, Pedal SATX was new, things like that. So that's just something to consider.
If not, I think that they'll never be considered.
And that
if we
could be
add those
placed within the
in there.
application to say,
Well, we could add that to the application, say if you received funding last year, you'll have to forego this next year and then come back the year after. If that's what y'all would like to do.
So then from the ones you have, who's all received in the past?
Ms. Cibolo has received it, Guadalupe County Children's Advocacy Center has received it, the CASA of Central
received
Texas
it?
has received it. I know those 3 were the first year. Last year, I'd have to look at my list because we did 14 last year, 14 applications last year, and I don't remember who all received it last year off the top of my head.
You don't know who's all received it in previous years?
Not, well, from the first year, I know GCCAC, CASA, and Miss
And Miss
Cibolo.
Cibolo.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
And
I
then
don't
Miss-
remember all last year because there was more.
Okay.
I want to propose something else just to think about. If we take Guadalupe County Children's Advocacy Center off of there, numbers 2 through 7 could all get $1,000. The remaining 11 could get the remaining 9 that got 2 or more council members supporting could get $500 each, and then the last 2 that had 1 council member supporting could get $250 each, and that would be our $12,000. That is an option. Sorry. So the takeaway Guadalupe County Children's Advocacy, these 6 could get 1,000 each. That adds up to 6,000. Then these 5 and these 4.
When you say they could get 1,000 each based on what is?
I'm just doing out of the 12,000, not out of any of this.
Oh, okay.
I'm just thinking separately.
Okay.
Then those 5 and those 4 could get 500, those 2 could get 250, and that adds up to 12,000. That gives everyone a little bit, but it does give more to the organizations that had more consensus.
So just so I'm tracking, Ms. Cunningham, you said the bottom 5 on the front of the page, and then the number 1, 2, 3, 4 on the top 4 on the back page, we
Everybody
get
that
500
got
piece?
more than one.
Would be 500, and then
Okay.
the last 2
It's 250.
would be 250 each. That would be 12,000. That was just an option.
Okay, let me go down the line. It would be granting the Resources for Women Horizons Pregnancy Center $1,000.
Yes.
It would be Angels Helpers $1,000. It would be the Miss Cibolo pageant $1,000. It would be Guadalupe County Master Gardeners $1,000. Texas Auxiliary Scout Support Association $1,000. The Soft Landing Sanctuary $1,000. Shirt Cibolo Cemetery Association $500. CASA of Central Texas $500. Big Brothers Big Sisters of South Texas $500. Warbler Woods Bird Sanctuary $500. Northeast Lakeview College $500. Hope Leadership Group $500. Pedal SATX $500. Rotary Club of Randolph Metrocom $500. JSA Youth Association $500. Discovery Church Recreational Fields and Track $250. Discovery Church Garden Initiative $250.
So we're gonna give $500 to the church. I know it's for 2 different projects, but it's still just one entity. So now you're gonna get, I mean, if I would prefer to take the Rotary Club completely out of this, only because I've only seen them provide 1 scholarship to the city for a student that is within the city of Cibolo, and it just happened to be the mayor's son. So I don't know what benefit the Rotary Club is necessarily providing, because the business-wise and all that, they're not providing things. So I would like to perhaps take the Rotary Club out of our, and maybe take some of the money that you were saying you would like to, and give that to Pedal SA and to the Youth Association.
I was just trying to do easy math.
No, I know, but I'm just saying.
I would like to say, I am not a member of the Rotary Club because I cannot literally have one more thing on my very full plate. But I have been very active in the Rotary Club, and in terms of like connecting with what they're doing for the community. And I think there has been some improvement in the way that they're reaching out to the community. Paige Maloney is a part of that club now. The gentleman from Magnolia Pancake House. They have Freddie from the YMCA, or Freddie, thank you, is part of, so I think they are doing a lot more. They did a huge, their first time ever fundraiser for making more scholarships available.
Well, I mean, I understand that, but I am a part of the Rotary Club. So that's the only reason I'm throwing that out there, because I haven't seen a benefit come from that impacts Cibolo. And that's the whole point of this grant, is for what's going to impact Cibolo in the most positive way. So again, I think it kind of goes back to the Tri-County thing. I mean, can they prove themselves to us that they are going to be there for us, for Cibolo, and for our residents, and for our students, and for things? Because I mean, the Rotary Club it's a very good organization. I mean, I participated in I actually did their very first casino night that they did to raise funds for scholarships and whatnot. But I just kind of feel like they would be a little lower on our list, perhaps, than I think the Pedal SATX and the youth organization is a better benefit at this point.
And just to be clear, I'm not tied to those numbers. I just was trying to do easy math that I didn't have to get a calculator out for.
The thing that I liked, the thing that I liked about the way you broke it down, Katie, is you did do it based on the number of council members that did support it. Yeah. So, so I read that out. I'm going, if everybody's okay, I'm going to go around a circle to say, yes, what I read is acceptable, or no, it's not. It won't hurt my feelings. We can go back and have further discussion. Jeff? You want me to do it again? Okay, that would be resources for women, DBA Horizon Pregnancies resources, $1,000. Angel Helpers, $1,000. Miss Cibolo Pageant, $1,000. Guadalupe County Master Gardeners, $1,000. Texas Auxiliary Scout Support Association, $1,000. The Soft Landing Sanctuary, $1,000. Now, each of the ones I'm going to read out are $500. Shirts Cibolo Cemetery Association, CASA of Central Texas, Big Brothers Big Sisters of South Texas, Warbler Woods Bird Sanctuary, Northeast Lakeview College, Hope Leadership Group LLC, Pedal SATX, Rotary Club of Randolph Metrocom, JSA Youth Association. Discovery, and then for $250, we would have the Discovery Church Recreational Fields and Track, Discovery Church Garden Initiative. Mr. McLaughlin.
Yay.
I don't think the last two we should provide. I'd rather see Pedal SATX increased because I think we're going to see more of a direct impact here in the city if we engage more with them.
So would you take it from the Discovery Church or from the Rotary Club? Those were the two.
The last two had 250 each.
So you would take it from the Discovery Church and
say,
and count them as one single entity and give them 250 and take that 250 and apply it to the Pedal SATX, so they would get 750? Is that what you're suggesting?
No, I would bump them to 1,000 personally.
Okay. That then,
Decide
okay.
differently.
So you're bumping, you would take Pedal, okay. Then we're going to abandon the number of council persons who supported it and bump them up. Okay. Do you support the sheet? So you do not support this?
Just for those last line, the last two, I wouldn't. And I would take that money from the last two and I would put it in Pedal.
Okay, so you take $500 from Discovery Recreation and Garden Initiative and move it to the Pedal.
Correct.
Okay, so did you hear that, everybody? That was her suggestion, but I'm going to go through with the original amounts first because, you know, Katie?
I'm good with either way. My hesitation with Discovery Church, and the reason that I did not personally award points to them on my little thing, was because I'm not sure how open that's going to be to the public. So while it may be available to the public, I know there's been issues with their basketball courts and things that they have put together. So if we're looking at like the actual residents that would be available.
So she's also a no for this circle, but kind of with the same
I'd be
solution.
okay if the rest of council's good with it. I'm good with it.
That's why we're taking it. Yeah. Okay, Norma?
So we're increasing pedal SATX to 1,000?
No. What she would be doing is taking off, what she was suggesting is taking off the 250 and the 250 and putting that to the pedal SATX.
So that gives them an additional 500, so brings
That
them
would
up to
become
1,000.
Correct.
I liked what
Right,
Amanda had
no,
said.
right now,
Okay.
we are voting on exactly what I read out. So you said no and you said no, and you are saying?
Yes.
Okay, so you say yes, this, the way it was, okay.
Yeah, no, I had agreed with Katie on
So
that.
no is
Because it was
fine?
not going to be
No is
open to the
fine.
public.
We'll come back around and I'll make that.
I say yes, because there's no process in place
Okay,
currently.
so I have yes, and then the rest are no's. Okay, so I'm gonna come back and I'm going to say, Liz, here we go. The suggestion was, we are going to strike the last two. That total is $500. I'm going to apply that $500 to pedal SATX. So now I'm going to read down the list of folks that would get $1,000. I'm going to take pedal.
Mayor, Ms. Danetta Roberts, she made a consideration first for pedal SATX to get 250 and JSA Youth Association for 250.
To increase each one of those by 250.
I had two suggestions, almost three suggestions to do it this way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk through the vote. Yay or nay is all I need. If you want to explore that other avenue, I 100% support you naying it, okay? Okay, hold on a second. Let me
Yay.
back up. No, I'm good. 250 goes to pedal SATX, set for a total of 750, and then the 250 goes to JSA Youth Association for 750. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna restate this. You guys. Do you have a highlighter, Norma, that I can borrow, please, so I do not screw this up? Because I'm gonna read it out once, and then you guys are gonna vote on it, so be prepared, all right? Hello, my little friend, okay. All right, I'm gonna start reading out how we're gonna do it, ladies. You ready? Okay. This is the list of people that would get $1,000. Resources for Women, a DBA Horizon Pregnancy Center, Angel Helpers, Miss Cibolo Pageant, Guadalupe County Master Gardeners, Texas Auxiliary Scout Support Association, The Soft Landing. All of those, $1,000. Then we would have, for $750, pedal SATX and JSA Youth Association. For $500, they would receive, each of these entities would receive $500. Shirts Cibolo Cemetery Association, CASA of Central Texas, Big Brothers Big Sisters of South Texas, Warbler Woods Bird Sanctuary, Northeast Lakeview College, Hope Leadership Group LLC, Rotary Club of Randolph Metroclom. Jeff.
Yay.
Marissa.
Yes.
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 So that is the, but it votes. So
Okay.
again, I would like to say we are done. And so Mr. Reed and Ms.
All right.
Anna and Chiefs are we good? Is everybody finished?
We are good.
Okay, then I need to move on to the next item, which is adjournment.
Oh, I do have one question.
Oh, good night.
I'm sorry. When are we going to get the detailed budget breakdown? Is that at the August 11th meeting where it's by like where we can see the council's section broken down, all of that.
We're trying to get that out by Friday, next
This
week.
Friday? Oh, next Friday.
That's tomorrow.
Not by tomorrow.
It's like, wow, that's ambitious.
And again, remember, you'll get that by way of an email. We'll cover it at August 11th. We'll come back August 25th, discuss it more. And then at the first September meeting, that's when you make your motions on the budget.
Will we be getting a printed version too?
If you all would like the printed version, we will print it,
I
put it in your, and put it in your mailbox.
I would appreciate that. It's
We will
helpful
do
to
that.
highlight and stuff.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Can somebody make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Aye, everybody say aye.